It's being torn down.
No, the new one.
Oh, what street's that on? I don't know.
Adam Street. It's the old work release facility. They
Oh,
moved
okay,
it into
did they?
there.
Oh.
Yeah.
Let's make it the secret way. Let's move that in.
It's time for a match and some gas.
Can you tell Laurenti I emailed it to him if he wants to take a look at it?
She emailed the latest. Yeah, should be able to.
Tell him it was the Jerry righted one.
Good evening, everyone. We will call the November 21, 2011 City Council meeting to order. First order of business is roll call and determination of quorum. Charlene?
Nordstrom. Here. Mason. Here. Doyle. Here. Sasso. Here. Davis. Here. Peterson. Here. Roberts.
Here.
Brown. Here. Wright. Here. Laurenti. Here. We have quorum.
Next order of business is invocation, and Jerry Wright will lead us in prayer. Everyone, please rise. Next order of business is to adopt the agenda. We have a couple of changes. We're going to be moving, with the consent of the council, we'll be moving item 164. We'll be moving item 164 to be right after item 13. So 164, which is the alcohol license for Fresh Start convenience stores at 520 Birch Avenue near School of Mines, that will be moved to right after item 13. We also will be adding item 166 after the bill list, called the Rupert Appeal. Are there any additional items to add to tonight's agenda? Any additional items? And we'll go to Jordan Mason. Jordan?
Thank you, Mayor. Did we also have an item for Jackson Springs? Would that also be included?
We'll go to our Public Works Director, Terry Waltersdorf. The question was on a Jackson Springs item. I understand there will not be an item.
We did not add that to the agenda.
Okay.
We're going to have some more meetings internally before we come forward with something for the council.
Thank you.
Any additional items? Seeing none, do we have a motion to approve the agenda with the two additions? Motion by Brown, second by Peterson. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, motion carries. We need a motion to approve the minutes for November 7 regular council and to correct the minutes of October 3. We have a motion by Davis and a second by Peterson. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, motion carries. And now we'll go to our awards and recognitions. And if the Ward 1 Alderman could join me. And your family is also welcome to join you, if they're here. Your family here tonight? Come on up, you guys. No? Okay, that's fine. Bruce, I'd like to take a moment to thank you for your leadership in our community and for the difference that you have made. In 2009, you approached Ron Weifenbach and I on your concerns and your desire to see Rapid City's 26 squad cars include an AED device, an auto external defibrillator, and he won't demonstrate it for us, but Mike's holding one up. I just want to take a moment to thank Bruce, and I have a proclamation here. Whereas Rapid City resident Bruce Peterson and father-in-law of Rapid City police officer Todd Heinley nearly lost his daughter to a cardiac arrest in 2008. And whereas Bruce put his experience into action by lobbying the Rapid City Council to get 26 auto external defibrillators, or AEDs, for Rapid City's police cars in the summer of 2009. And whereas on August 27, 2011, visitor Jeff Siemens was a passenger in a car traveling down Mount Rushmore Road and experienced cardiac arrest, and the Rapid City Police Department was able to revive Mr. Siemens with use of a squad car's AED. And by the way, the footage of that dramatic revival has been posted to YouTube with Mr. Siemens' permission, and you can go to the Rapid City Police Department's website to find it, and it had 30,000 hits within just a few days. And whereas on September 13, 2010, Delmer Fickbaum of Rapid City was also saved by a squad car AED after suffering a cardiac arrest while mowing his lawn. And whereas these AEDs have resulted in 2 saved lives thus far and have the potential to save many more in the future. I would like to read this letter from former Alderman Ron Weifenbach, who could not be here tonight, and I'm reading this letter on his behalf. It says, "Dear Sam, thank you for the invitation to honor Mr. Peterson and all that made this project a reality. Unfortunately, my schedule does not allow me to attend. I would like to extend my appreciation to Mr. Bruce Peterson for his efforts that led to the placement of the AEDs in our police department. I would also like to extend my appreciation to Chief Allender for his leadership and understanding of the importance of securing the AEDs, and to the police officers themselves for taking on another facet to their already demanding duties as they serve our community with such great pride. Our community is grateful for the lives that will be saved with the use of this equipment. Thank you, Ron Weifenbach. Now, therefore, I, Sam Quaker, Mayor of Rapid City, do hereby proclaim Monday, November 21, as Bruce Peterson Day in Rapid City in recognition of his persistence and dedication to ensuring the future safety of our citizens and tourists and visitors. And further, I encourage everyone to observe this day with appropriate activities. Thank you.
I want to thank you, Mr. Mayor, and the police chief, fire chief, for and the city council for making this happen, giving the police department tools to help them do their job, and the fire department for helping the police department with training. And most of all, I want to thank the police department and fire department for saving my daughter. Thank you, sir.
Happy Thanksgiving. Let's get a picture. We could drop off. Yeah. And if our Ward 3 council members, Jerry and Dave, could please come down, and also Thomas Motacek. Mr. Motacek. Thank you for coming. In partnership with the Veterans Coordination Commission, we are pleased to present the November 2011 Veteran of the Month recognition to Tom Motacek. Tom was born in Zanesville, Ohio. After 4 years, he and his family moved to Niobrara, Nebraska. He graduated from high school in May 1987 and joined the Navy in October of that year. He served honorably and faithfully until he was medically discharged with an 80% disability in May 1998. He attended several Navy schools, including the Machinist Mate A School. He had firefighter training and became a Class II swimmer functioning as a search and rescue diver. Tom performed supervisory duties for the engineering sections of the various ships he was assigned. He was a Navy recruiter working out of the San Francisco area, and he served on various ships, including the USS Francis Hammond as a sub-hunter out of Japan, and the USS White Plains, a cargo ship out of Guam, and the USS Mount Vernon, a troop carrier out of San Diego. While deployed in the Middle East, his medical condition was discovered and resulted in him being medically discharged in 1998. His awards and decorations include Navy Achievement Medal, Navy Unit Commendation Medal, Navy Meritorious Unit Commendation Medal, Navy E-Ribbon, Navy Good Conduct Award, National Defense Service Medal, Armed Forces Expeditionary Medal, Southwest Asia Service Medal, 3 Navy Sea Service Deployment Ribbons, Navy Recruiting Service Ribbon with 5 Gold Wreath Awards, 3 letters of commendation, and the enlisted Service Warfare Specialist pin. He served with honor despite the condition he endured. Following his medical discharge from the Navy, he became an independent engineering consultant and opened his own business in 2004. He attended Northeast Technical College, majoring in electrical and mechanical engineering. In 2006, he received his journeyman's license. In 2008, he moved to Rapid City to attend the School of Mines to major in mechanical engineering. In 2011, he began pursuing degrees in industrial technology and teaching at Black Hills State University, where he also works part-time as an information specialist. His greatest achievements in the U.S. Navy are when he assisted in the rescue of 5 people from a burning ship in the Straits of Hormuz in 1992, and his recruiting service for the U.S. Navy. He is a life member of the Veterans of Foreign Wars, the Military Order of the Cootie, and the Retired Enlisted Association. He serves as Secretary of the TRIA Board of Directors. He is a member of the American Legion, Moose, and the Elks. He served his country with pride, honor, and integrity, and deserves the Veteran of the Month award. Thank you, sir.
Oh, gee. I was kind of hoping for free parking at School of Mines, but this will work. This will work. I'd like to thank my family here in Rapid City, my girlfriend Diane, her son Dakota, my family back in Nebraska, and all veterans that helped me through the way to get here. I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Brett Limbaugh from Community Planning and Brad Solon. If you could come up. Brad, we just want to take a moment to acknowledge your 20 years of distinguished service to the city and the Community Planning and Development Services Department. The name has changed a couple of times, but your work has been dedicated, remains the same, and we appreciate all that you've done for our community. I'd like to turn the microphone over to Brett Limbaugh.
Thanks, Mayor. I, too, would like to express our gratitude for all of your years of service. I have had the opportunity to work with Brad for just a few months now, but I can tell you that everybody in the department has a great deal of respect, not only for what he does on a daily basis, but all the years that he has put in with the city. So, Brad, congratulations. I'm looking for about 20 more.
Thank you.
Chief Multivern and Tim Daly. Thanks for coming. Tim, we just want to take a moment and thank you for your tremendous service to our community. We want to acknowledge your 25 years of distinguished service to the City of Rapid City and the Rapid City Fire Department.
Thank you, Mayor. And Tim, thanks for joining me tonight and also bringing your family and extended family. I see your in-laws are here tonight, and girls came up from college at Black Hills State tonight. So just a couple of things about Tim. Tim serves as a battalion chief with the Rapid City Fire Department. As we're here tonight recognizing 25 years of dedication and service to the community, and that Tim has always served with the utmost of his abilities and his knowledge. Tim came to us as a paramedic back in the 80s. Started his career in 1986 with the fire department and has been a leader in the EMS field for Rapid City and really the state of South Dakota. A number of our paramedics that are working in our system today were basically trained under Tim as a paramedic himself. He rose through the ranks. In 1995 was promoted to lieutenant. In 99 was promoted to the rank of captain, serving in the north part of town. And he's spent most of his career downtown, and there's a reason for that. Tim's kind of our expert when it comes to the incident command system and managing the largest incidents, emergency incidents that occur in Rapid City and the surrounding area. And he also serves on a Type 2 incident management team. Tim's traveled all around the United States on some of the largest, most complex incidents in the country, and he's certainly a role model for all young firefighters that come in to the fire department and has done a great job for us. And I'm just honored to recognize him tonight because it has been 25 years of some pretty awesome service to the community. So thanks, Tim. Thanks.
And is Susan Bronstein here from the library? Thank you for coming.
We've got technical issues.
Susan, we want to take a moment to acknowledge you for your 25 years of distinguished service to the city and to the Rapid City Public Library. Thank you very much. Secretary.
Susan told me I couldn't say anything profound, but for those of you who know Susan, who've had the pleasure of knowing her for a good number of years over at the library, you know about the infectious enthusiasm she brings to everything she does. And she's served in a number of roles in the library, but most recently, she coordinates all the programming there for babies all the way up to retirees. And Susan is really an integral part of why so many of the library's programs and services are standing room only. So we're very happy to have her. We're very happy she's been 25 years with us, and I don't know if we'll get 20 more, but a few more anyway.
And you know, I started as a teenager.
It's been a great ride. It really has. I mean, you know, you always hear about people saying, 25 years, I can't believe it. And you always think, oh, what are they talking about? You know, of course you can believe it. But really, it has gone by so fast. And the part of the reason I could stay this long is because the job has changed immensely over the years, from, you know, just the little cards in the books to the total technology that we have every day in our lives now. And because my positions changed so often through the years, that made it a really exciting opportunity for me. And I plan to be there for a while longer. So thanks, everybody.
Don't worry, everybody's watching.
Now is the time for the members of the public to discuss or express concerns to the council on any issue not on the agenda. Action will not be taken at the meeting on any issue not on the agenda, except by placement on the agenda by a unanimous vote of the council members present. We do have one general public item, and that is from Dan Tribby.
Good evening. Here for a little different reason tonight. Not going to ask you for a darn thing. What I'm here for is, you know, we've worked on the Main Street Square project and the development project downtown now for a couple of years. We actually broke ground on Main Street Square not quite a year ago, and on our projects we started on the building projects breaking ground in April or May. Seems like 10 years ago, but it hasn't been that long. And at that time, we got a lot of advice from folks that told us, when you come forward in front of the city, just expect to be given a hard time. Learn to hop on one foot and pirouette, because they're going to put you through the ringers and it's going to be tough. And I'm just here tonight to basically say that wasn't the case. We've been through really we're on our second mayor, our second council. A lot of different folks have been involved with this. I think that we have worked with every department in Rapid City, and I would love to name every person that we worked with, but I would just murder it and I would forget so many people. But for all of the advice that we got on how tough things were going to be, I would just like to say every single department that we've worked with, every single one of the people that we've worked with, has been nothing but helpful to us. A lot of cases we didn't know what we were doing. We came forward and didn't have our paperwork correct, and they took the time to correct it for us. They took the time to tell us how much time we needed to file, or what the permits were going to cost, or whatever the deal was. It was absolutely 180 degrees what we were told was going to happen. And I just came here tonight to just thank the council, thank the staff, all the department heads for all of the help that they've given us. You know, they never shaved any corners for us. We went through everything we needed to go through, but they were there to lead the way. When we had questions, if I had questions, they would just say, bring your papers over, we'll help you with it. And, you know, you all know I'm not that sharp, so I kind of needed to spend a lot of time over here. And I'm very appreciative of all the departments and all the help, all the council people who have called us over the last couple of years. They wanted clarification on something, or they had some questions. They were doing their job. Really thanks to all of you. You know, so many of the contractors that we had talked to early on, and they just, you know, had reiterated how tough this was going to be. And one thing I can say is, if you have money to spend in Rapid City, if you have a project or in the area, think about using people from this area. They do know how to use how to come in and do business with the city. We're so thankful with the people that we brought in on this project that they did know how to work with city government, and the city government made it so much easier for all of us to get these projects done. I think we're just waiting for the ice to freeze. Any day now, within the next couple of days, you'll see folks skating out there. All of our buildings in 512, or all of our businesses, are open now, and that again just really comes back to you folks. You made it possible, and we're very thankful. And just have a wonderful Thanksgiving, and just wanted to take a second to say thanks.
Thank you very much, Dan. We will now move on to public comment for items 3 through 62. Do we have a motion to open public comment for 3 through 62? Which we have a motion by Mason, second by Roberts, to open public comment for 3 through 62, which will include public comment on item 64, which is being moved after item 13. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed, motion carries. Public comment is now open. Item 164. We have 10 speaker request forms on item 164, and we will start with Mark Schwartz, president of Fresh Start Stores.
Hi, thank you for having me tonight. I feel a little bit like David versus Goliath tonight. I have a little small store, the Gas Depot convenience store over there, and it happens to be located by the School of Mines, which is obviously important to the city in a lot of ways. They are, I believe, asking the council to deny our packaged liquor license, and I believe the reasoning behind that you'll hear from them tonight is the clientele, I don't know a better way to put it, intoxicated people who have moved into the area over there. I would only say it is a huge problem. I sympathize with them. I have a 17-year-old daughter who's considering going there, and I will tell you, I walked through the parking lot, and as a father, I'm not sure I would want her going to that school with the problem that currently exists over there. My disagreement is I do not believe it is because of us. We contributed a couple times, as the police report will show. We did have some people who sold to intoxicated people. What I would tell you tonight is that I've almost closed the store down for the same reason over there, and the police reports will indicate our incidents are on the rise just like theirs are. I do not believe it's because we are selling hard liquor in the store instead of beer in the store. The police in this town did an excellent job cleaning up one part of the city over by the Prairie Liquor Store, and that clientele seems to have moved to our part of the neighborhood as well. I went to a meeting with them, I expressed my opinion, and I'm doing everything, I agreed at the meeting to do everything that I knew that was physically possible to make sure that we never, ever sold to an intoxicated person again. I don't know if you can see this up here. You guys may, does that work? Does that work? Can you see on that thing up there? I'll just show you. I put signs up in the store. We put machines in the store. We have done everything as an owner. I own 20 of these stores around our state in Wyoming. And as an owner with 2 girls at home, there's nothing worse than to get called and say that one of your people failed to sting. I've been before, I believe, every city council in this state and in Wyoming where we have stores and in Nebraska, and I always ask the same thing. I wish you all would make the laws so tough on the people who worked in the store that it would help us not ever to sell to an underage person or to anyone who is intoxicated. I made some cheap signs. I put them on the front door. We have something there. We absolutely, since the day of that meeting, if somebody does not have a driver's license to swipe through the machine, we don't sell to them. And I'll say it'll never happen again, but I mean, the people we hire, they come and go, and who knows? I mean, they may do it, but I've done everything I know to do. In most of my stores now, that machine costs several $1,000s to put in, and no license, no ID, they don't get sold to. We do the same thing. I told them, look, I know you go through TAM training, I know you go through everything that you do, but bottom line, you smell alcohol, don't sell to them. I put these goofy signs up, so we tell everybody, and we took a big sales hit. The people just go down the street. I would only ask you to consider as you listen to them, because they have a good argument, that we're not going to solve the problem if my store doesn't sell liquor. The very same lady who happened to be deformed, and it's hard to tell how she talks anyway, after the meeting when I went over to the store to implement all this, was staggering across the street in front of the police car, and she was so drunk she didn't even need to be walking outside. We didn't sell her alcohol. There's 3-4 liquor stores. Look at all the liquor licenses that are up for approval tonight. There's in a 5-mile area over there, there's a lot of people who sell alcohol, and it's a real problem in the area. I'll tell you, since the meeting, things have gotten a lot better, at least at our store. I don't know if they have for the School of Mines, and there's a big reason. There's police presence in the area, and it's helping a ton. They sit out in the front and they watch for speeders, and they've helped us. I mean, we call them now. We've got all the people who are intoxicated most of the time in a spiral notebook there. We call and they come pick them up and take them away for us. So they have a good argument. I don't believe that you shut us down, I don't think it's going to fix the problem. It's going to take a lot more than that. And I would just ask that we look at the bigger picture and not just denying us selling alcohol in the store. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Schwartz, and we'll recognize Mary Jo Farrington. Mary Jo. And if you could state your name and organization for the record when you come forward.
Here? Okay. Good evening. I'm Mary Jo Farrington, and I'm an alcohol educator. I work at 4 colleges here in Rapid City. And I wanted to speak in behalf of the School of Mines and one of the concerns that we have, and that is the selling of the 40-ounce malt liquor. And I brought this as a prop. We do this with students too. This is a 40-ounce liquor, a beer bottle, which is equivalent to about 3 1/3 cans of regular standard beer. However, if you look at this 40-ounce bottle, it also, instead of the standard 5% alcohol, this has 10.2% alcohol. So this bottle is equivalent to drinking about 7 glasses of beer, 7 cans of regular beer. it's not that difficult to drink this much alcohol in an hour. And I want to read you the BAC. As you know, the legal definition of intoxication is a .08 blood alcohol content. If you were to drink this bottle of 40 ounce at 10.2% alcohol, if you were a woman, and this is a BAC card made by a police department member that we use with all our students that we can. If you were a woman that weighed 140 pounds and you had 7 glasses of beer or 7 cans of beer, this bottle, your BAC would be approximately .23. If you were a 240 pound man, and you had this bottle of beer, which is equivalent to 7 cans, your BAC would be approximately .11. And so in all cases, this is really a dangerous amount of alcohol to drink. And is Pat here? Yeah, okay. I'm going to read this next statement for Pat Mann, who is the Vice President at the School of Mines, the Vice President of Student Affairs. And this is what she asked me to read. She is teaching a class right now and will come when she can. Students increasingly voice concern of being approached for pocket change and in some cases are followed to park cars, apartments, and sorority houses. In December 2010, and again this fall, we wrote the management of the Ranch Mart and visited with local managers expressing our concern without much response. A few weeks ago, following an incident where the Ranch Mart gas depot was cited for selling to an intoxicated individual, representatives from the School of Mines and the Rapid City Police Department met with personnel from the Ranch Mart. It has been better since that time. However, our concern is that if the liquor license is renewed, problems will again increase. The students and staff at the School of Mines are concerned for their personal safety and the neighborhood environment, which includes the concern of a serious incident involving intoxicated individuals. Thank you for consideration of not renewing the liquor license for the gas depot. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we'll go to Kara Painter Green. And again, if you could identify your organization and your name.
I'm Kara Painter Green. I'm the National Park Service Northern Great Plains Network Coordinator. Our offices are at 231 East St. Joseph. We lease our vehicles from GSA and our building from the School of Mines Foundation. We moved into our current location in February of 2008. We are not a public National Park Service office. I have a permanent staff of about 9 people. We do not have a front desk person, but because of the intoxicated people in our neighborhood, we must leave our front door locked because people wander through the building. We have our front door to the outside open, but people have to knock to actually come into our building. We have to advise our staff, both permanent and seasonal, that they should be very careful leaving the building after dark because the neighborhood is unsafe. We've had a number of incidents over the years that I've been there with both intoxicated and homeless people. Less than a month ago, we had at 8 in the morning an intoxicated person come in through our back door saying that he was being threatened by 2 other intoxicated people and basically tried to hide out in our offices. This was, again, just 3 weeks ago. So there are still, obviously, incidents with alcohol in the neighborhood. We also have had to, when people go on out of the area travel, which in the summer is every week, we have all the cars parked against the building in a locked, fenced lot. And most of our permanent staff actually have their significant other drop them off so they don't have to leave their car in our neighborhood during that time frame. So I guess we would ask that, along with School of Mines and the School of Mines Foundation, as a renter in that area, that the permit for the liquor license at the gas station be pulled.
Thank you. And we'll recognize Carlos Beatty, Jr. And again, if you could identify your name and your organization.
Thank you, Mayor. My name is Carlos Beatty, Jr., and I'm the student representative from South Dakota School Mines Technology Student Association president. I'd like to thank you for hearing us today. This issue has been present for the last couple of years. As president, I get the opportunity to sit down with students. I get to share stories and talk with them. And the Hard Rocking Depot has been one of those major concerns. Recently, our Senate has taken up an initiative to encourage students to walk home in pairs, improve safety, because the area as a whole is not a safe area for students to be walking in. I can't tell you how many times personally I've been either stalked, approached, or asked for change from intoxicated individuals coming out of the Hard Rock Depot, coming across the street to students just trying to walk home and asking for change or following or stalking. This is something that's not uncommon. This happens every night. Just recently, today, I was talking to a student who was heavily intoxicated and walked into the Hard Rock and Gas Depot yesterday and was still able to buy alcohol, even though, as his other friend said, he reeked of it and shouldn't have been able to do so. The effects of close proximity liquor sales has really affected the area, as others have said. There's been stalkings, there's been people asking for change. Recently, I own a house, or I rent a house in the area, and when you come home at midnight and you see an intoxicated individual on your front porch asking you how the evening goes, and you have no idea who it is, it's quite concerning, it's quite scary. I don't feel safe knowing that there's liquor being served, they get drunk, and they come into the students' areas. So with that, from a student standpoint, this establishment is an endangerment to the well-being of student life, and I would kindly ask that you consider revoking this liquor license, because it will really help the student community and student life as we see it. So, thank you.
Thank you. And next we'll go to Lauren Brass. And again, if you could identify yourself and the organization you represent.
Thank you, Mayor and the City Council, for allowing me to make comments. My name is Lauren Brass. I'm an alumni of the School of Mines, currently acting president of the foundation of the School of Mines, and also the chairman of the Board of Trustees of the School of Mines Foundation. I'm here to voice my opinion that the liquor license for the Ranch Mart should not be renewed. The School of Mines Foundation owns many rental properties in the vicinity of the Ranch Mart, including 56 units and 1 sorority house. The majority of these units and the sorority house are within a 2.5-block distance from the Ranch Mart to the west. And all of these units are within 3 blocks west and a half block south. These properties are homes to many of the young people who work and attend classes at the School of Mines. Since the instatement of the Ranch Mart's liquor license in February of 2009, the number of unauthorized individuals or trespassers on School of Mines Foundation properties has significantly increased. We are hearing an increasing number of concerns and complaints from our tenants, and many of them are fearful of encounters with vagrant and intoxicated individuals. Some are even afraid to go home at night. The School of Mines Foundation recently moved its physical location from campus to 306 East St. Joe Street, Suite 200, the upper floor of the Dakota Business Center, which is just 1 block west of the Ranch Mart. In the 3 short weeks that we have resided in our new location, staff members have voiced concerns about the groups of seemingly intoxicated individuals congregating in our parking lot and assembling in the alley adjacent to our property on a daily basis. It's also quite common to see individuals leaving the Ranch Mart on foot at any hour of the day with newly purchased alcoholic beverages. On one occasion, the staff witnessed an apparently intoxicated individual passed out in the alley to the west. The individual was eventually taken away by ambulance. We continue to work closely with the Rapid City Police Department and the campus to try to ensure a safe environment for our staff and tenants, of which the great majority are students. We have attempted to make the situation safer by adding supplemental lighting and making our staff and tenants aware of their surrounding. Both groups, however, continue to be concerned for their personal safety and the neighborhood environment. We are concerned that the likelihood of a serious incident is inevitable. For these reasons, I request that the City Council denies the renewal of the liquor license for the Ranch Mart. Thank you.
Thank you. And next we'll go to Geraldine Roberts. Again, if you could identify yourself and the organization you represent.
My name is Geraldine Roberts, and I'm the Environmental Health and Safety Director at the School of Mines. One of the parts of my position is to look at the overall safety of campus. And in the past few years, I've been tracking all the data that's with the incidents that have occurred around campus. One that I have particularly been looking at is the number of trespassing incidents that have occurred on our campus and the foundation properties. And in 2007 and 2008, we only had 1 or 2 incidences occur. But in 2009, when the liquor license was instated, it went up to 10, and then it went up to 15 in 2010, and it's now at 15 in 2011. What I'd like to say is that looking at this, we've tried to make the students more aware of what's going on, but we can see a direct correlation of what's happening. And one of the other things that I do quite frequently is work with the police department to try to see what we can do about these issues that we're having in our neighborhoods. And we've had several neighborhood meetings where the students have come, and it is a really big issue. The first meeting we had, which was in the fall of 2010, we had 32 students show up, which is quite a lot for a student. They just want to be able to do their homework, get things done, get their degree. They don't want to have to worry about the safety of their neighborhood. So I guess what I would like to say is that we see a correlation in this, and we would like to see that the liquor license not be renewed. Thank you.
Thank you. And next we'll go to Heather Fannin. Heather?
My name is Heather Fannin. I'm with International Students Incorporated, which is a campus ministry group. We partner with the School of Mines and NAU, but I'm actually here as a neighbor. We live 4 blocks from the Ranch Mart, and we've lived there for 12 years, and we've seen a very large increase in what's going on in the neighborhood with intoxicated people, and it's directly impacting not only the international students that live in the neighborhood, but the things that have gone on in my home. Our house is home, a second home to the international students, so we have lots of activities there. And we have coffee house on Wednesday night. One Wednesday night, there was a knock on the door, and we have a joke that it must be an American because the internationals just come in. And I opened the door, and an intoxicated person was there. He grabbed my arm and insisted I come out on the porch with him. It was cold. And I refused, and he wouldn't leave the home, and we had to call the police. And when the police came, they said that that was the second time he'd done that day, and the first person had not wanted to press charges, so they'd let him go. But we have people passed out on our front lawn. We have international students accosted on their way back and forth to the university. And so it's a huge issue for me. And my husband and I used to get our gas at the Ranch Mart, very convenient place to get gasoline near the house. And my husband had witnessed several times people going in, getting the big bottles of malt liquor and then sitting down in front of the sorority house, in front of the apartments where the students live, and drinking it in just a matter of minutes. And so they may not have been intoxicated when they went in, but they were very intoxicated just a little while later. I know that it has affected international students' desires to attend the university. We have groups come in from other campuses to see Mount Rushmore, and I often ask them if they're engineering students, why not School of Mines? And twice in the last year I've had them tell me, well, we talked to people who attend here, and they said the neighborhood's not safe. So this is a huge impact, and these are the brightest and the best in the world, and we're losing them. They're not coming to Rapid City because of the neighborhood. So I ask you to please not renew this liquor license. Thank you.
We'll go to Tim Henderson.
Thank you for this opportunity. There's been a lot of speakers, so I'll try and be very brief. But on behalf of the faculty, staff, and especially the students of the School of Mines, we recommend that the liquor license for Fresh Start convenience stores, 520 Birch Avenue, across from the School of Mines, not be renewed. We have done a lot of work with the police department. They've been great. They've tried to help out. Just so many reported incidents that are going on in that neighborhood. We're doing everything we can. We want to continue to do everything we can to help clean up that part of town for our students, for Rapid City, and for the School of Mines. We're really trying to be a good citizen, and our efforts have shown that, I think, especially in that area. We've also, we have some plans for trying to develop that part of town. That's a ways away. We're starting to make some inroads there. Some things will happen in the next months and years, but small steps can help a lot in cleaning up a neighborhood. There's just two items I want to mention that to me stick out in my mind, and one is the meeting that's been referred to numerous times with the management of Fresh Start. It just happened in October, happened shortly after the last violation over there. And I think there was a legitimate conversation going on about trying to clean things up. But what stuck in my mind in that particular meeting was when I realized, gosh, there's more than 20 of these stores that are owned by this management company. And we talked about that a little bit across the table. And he said, yeah, and this one, I asked, well, how is this one doing? It's causing you a lot of problems. The response I got was, well, this one loses money. It loses money. I said, what? That doesn't make any business sense. It can't be losing money. Well, no, I guess I'll back up a little bit. It's not losing money. It would if it were not for that little liquor store on the north side. That was what I heard that day. We want one less than 20 stores because I don't think it's the right thing for that part of town. The other thing is just today, I'm driving by going down Main Street, and I look to the left, and I don't go that way very often. I look on the side of that convenience store. There's a sign when you're going by, there's a sign that says what the gas prices are and whatnot. But the only sign on the north side of that store says liquor store. It's kind of a convenience store, but it's too convenient for the people in that neighborhood to get alcohol. You can't. I don't expect we can disband and we can say there's no more alcohol sales in the city of Rapid City. Obviously, that's not going to happen. You can say that the clientele is going to go someplace else. Well, maybe they are, but I don't think they're going to walk half a mile away and come back a half a mile to get their 40. I don't think they're going to do that, and I think it's going to be a huge step for upgrading that side of town. And I think, when you have an enterprise that's that difficult for the management to make money on, we should think about what it does to the city of Rapid City. So please help our students, help our school, help that part of town. And I appreciate your time tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. And we'll go to Pat Mahon.
Thank you. I'm Pat Mann, and I'm the Vice President for Student Affairs and Dean of Students at the School of Mines. I believe Mary Jo Farrington read a statement from me earlier this evening, so I won't take a lot of time, but we really do appreciate your consideration of denying the liquor license at the gas depot for the health and safety of the students, faculty, and staff, and the neighbors in that area. So thank you for your consideration.
Thank you. And next we'll go to Hanny Shaffey.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and council members. My name is Hani Shafi, and I'm an alumni of the School of Mines. I'm also a member of the Board of Trustees for the foundation at the School of Mines. You know, as a community, we all know the asset that we have at the School of Mines as economic engine and also as a place to educate our future generations and our children of the state of South Dakota and several other communities within the U.S. and within the world. The School of Mines is a crucial asset, not only to our community and the state of South Dakota, but also to our national defense. There are several Defense Department agencies that conduct a lot of research at the School of Mines. And the great, bright children or students at the School of Mines do those experiments, and they do it through hard work and through dedication. Interruptions with alcohol or what have you are really not only dangerous to the School of Mines students, but also interrupting their daily life and makes it uncomfortable for them to conduct their work that is needed to conduct those experiments. The site or the license that you have before you has been cited more than once. The first time was April 8th, 2011, for a violation of the sale of liquor to people. In September 17th, 2011, violation by sale to intoxicated person. This was repeated again on September 21st, 2011, and shortly after that, the meeting with the police department and the school was conducted in October. If you ask the police department, you'll find out 40-ounce malt alcohol bottles, as Mary Jo has shown you, is a huge problem at that store. And she went through it. She forgot to tell you probably that the cost of buying one of those is $2.50. And most of those folks who may not be intoxicated when they walk into the store, most of them have $5 to buy two of those, not just one. And imagine what happens. She told you what happens with one. Imagine what happens with two of those, consumed by a man who probably has not spent money on food, but has spent money on buying two of those bottles. We have to work together to achieve the goal of providing safe education to our children. And to do that, we have to work with the existing businesses to make sure that those businesses are conducting themselves in a manner that does not conflict with the benefit of the community. And I urge you to do what is right for the community by doing what is right, by not providing this license any renewal. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll recognize Tim Rose.
I'm Tim Rose, and I am a former member of, or not a member, but a former worker from Gas Depot, and they got that machine and everything, and it's full safe because I tried it once. Someone was trying to try and buy liquor. I scanned it, and it said no sale, and the whole sale was shut off. So I can vouch that the machine actually does work. So if they scan it, it will shut the whole thing down. It goes back to sales, so it doesn't. You can't actually sell that to that person. So you can actually make sure that it doesn't, or a bad license or anything, and stuff like that. It does actually work. His scan machine does. It's full safe. You can't override it or anything unless you have a like an Arizona or a Montana license. They don't work on the machine. You have to actually type it in. So I think you guys should approve it because that's their bread and butter for right now, because that's what's keeping the store open. If he doesn't have that liquor license, he's probably have to close that store. So I'm just kind of letting you guys know. So thank you.
Thank you. We do not have any additional speaker request forms for items 3 through 62, which includes item 164. Because item 164 is a public hearing item, we will not take a motion at this time to close public comment. Instead, we'll ask council members and staff if there are any items other than 164 from items 3 through 61 that need to be removed from consent. Are there any other items 3 through 61 that need to be removed from consent other than item 164? Any additional items? Seeing none. Do we have a motion to? Okay. We have a motion. We have a second to approve items 3 through 61 with the exception of 164. We have a second by Wright. Motion by Peterson, second by Wright. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. We'll now go to 164, and because this is an official public hearing item, the public comment period will stay open until the council has voted. Do we have a motion from the council? Or discussion? We'll go to Bonnie Peterson.
Thank you. I'd like to move to deny, and then I'd like to keep the floor if I get a second.
We have a motion by Peterson and a second by Sasso, and we'll Bonnie have the floor.
Okay, thank you. I guess, can I ask Mr. Schwartz a question?
Go ahead.
Okay. Come up. Have you been advised or asked to stop or suggested for you to stop selling those 40-ounce malt liquors?
Several times, Bonnie. And one time I even tried to help the police and collect money back to get the cans back when they wanted to. And my position always was get the big Ds, get the other guys all to stop, and I'd be happy to take them out. We just have the liquor license for the last couple of years. We've been selling those since I bought that store, those 40 ounces. But you know what? I think it might be better. I mean, I'm really not an animal, and I really am sympathetic to their cause. I think we will just withdraw our application for the liquor license at that location, and I'll go try something else and see what else we can do. I really like that school. But I'm telling you, they will be back and they will work with the police, and until they will walk down there. I have stores in Martin and all around, and the problem is not my liquor store. The problem is the community, and I don't know how to solve it. But I think it might be better if we just withdraw it and take a tough situation off the table. I really want the school to do well, and it's good for the community. And we'll just have to figure something else out. So we will withdraw our application for next year, and we will find something else to do there, if that's okay with everyone here.
Okay, I will. I know that you're a very reasonable man from your comments that you made earlier and all, and I really appreciate that. And I guess I'll yield the floor so that I don't know if legal or who needs to address if they're going to withdraw their request, what needs to be done.
We'll go to our interim city attorney, Tamara Peer. Tamara?
I just think that you'll have to formally withdraw it tomorrow morning with the finance office.
Okay, we'll do that then. Thank you much.
So Tamara, is the motion?
And I think you can acknowledge the withdrawal tonight.
Okay.
If you choose to.
Motion to acknowledge. Second.
We have a motion by Davis and a second by Mason. A substitute motion to acknowledge the withdrawal of the applicant's request. And we'll now go to Jerry Wright. Jerry?
I, too, am a member of the foundation, and thank you for that withdrawal. And I am, too, concerned about what's happening to the students, but I concur. Having also been with the city and the solid waste division, and having worked in that area, there are some other issues related to that neighborhood, and I'm not going to discuss them, but I think we as a city, through our community development program and everything else, needs to do everything we can to build that area back up to where it belongs. And I think the foundation needs to be a partner of that. The School of Mines needs to be a partner of it. and anything we can do to bring it back. I know there was property down there owned by a friend that was demolished. It had nothing to do with Trailside. Just renders. We have problems we need to address, and I think we can help be a part of it and not all the solution. But that's all I have to say.
Any further requests to speak from the council? We'll go to our Police Chief, Steve Allender. Steve?
Thank you, Mayor. Well, I came with a speech prepared tonight, so I'd be ashamed to waste it. The withdrawal of the liquor license is good news, I think, for the university and for the neighborhood there, but it really doesn't solve the problem that we've all been talking about here for the last several minutes, and that is the 40-ounce bottles of malt liquor. Those are sold under the malt beverage license, which was renewed in May, I believe. So that business will continue. And so I have a little story for you. Mr. Schwartz alluded to this early on in his presentation. And about a little history on the problem with a particular group of homeless individuals that literally walk the streets beginning at 7 a.m. looking for alcohol, and they keep looking at it until they've found too much of it. And so in 2008, in an attempt for the police to solve a problem of an oversaturation of this group of homeless people and alcohol-related violence and other crimes and such alcohol abuse that we were filling up the detox center routinely, daily, we asked Prairie Bottle Market to discontinue the sale of their 40-ounce bottles of malt liquor. And to our surprise, they immediately took them off the shelves, didn't realize that it was this big of a problem or it was this important to us, and they stopped selling them on the spot. A short time later, Family Thrift Center at 855 Omaha called and wanted to know what was going on because of the crowd of people storming their liquor department trying to get 40-ounce bottles of malt liquor. We let them know that Prairie Market stopped selling them, and so immediately Family Thrift Centers stopped selling them. This crowd then went down to the Fresh Start, where they found them again. We immediately recognized, you literally follow the trail of bottles to know where people's source is for these bottles of alcohol. So we found that they had built a little encampment where they'd get the bottle at the Fresh Start, and they would go across the street to the north over by the new MDU building, and they were there in the tall grass, and there were, just inside of a week, there were hundreds of these bottles strewn all around. And so we approached Mr. Schwartz and asked him to stop selling the 40s for the same reason, and explained the process we'd been through, and he refused. And for some people who aren't in the position to work with this type of crime and disorder every day as we do, it might sound hard to believe that you can just keep chasing this problem around until it goes away. But in fact, this group of folks is one group that takes the path of least resistance when it comes to their alcohol. They have to find somewhere that has foot traffic so they can panhandle money. They have to find somewhere that will sell it, and they have to find a place to hide to drink it. And when those three things aren't met, then it's a hard issue for them. And we know we're not going to solve alcoholism. We can't change the world by taking 40-ounce bottles of liquor off the shelf, but trying to minimize the problem in these problem areas. So we met, as he mentioned, we met with him several times asking him to take them off the shelf, and there was too much money being made on this issue. He did start assessing a deposit on them, and then he was buying the bottles back because one related problem was all the broken glass along the streets and bike path. So that's the problem. That's where the 40-ounce bottles were still being sold. That's where the clientele that I spoke of earlier remained. And they remain there, and they continue to flourish there in what they do, because that's where they get what they're looking for. So in addition to what you have on the attached agenda for the violations, since April of 2008, this store has sold to minors 3 times, and they have sold to intoxicated persons 3 times. I should correct that. They were caught selling to minors 3 times and caught selling to intoxicated people 3 times. We have other incidents of catching highly intoxicated people on or near the South Dakota Mines campus that just came from the Fresh Start. All customers of the 40-ounce drink. Mr. Schwartz stated in this meeting that everyone attended that he's willing to try our ideas, but he's not willing to stop selling alcohol. He believes that even if he instituted our ideas, nothing would change, and in 6 months, everything would still be the same. And I think there's evidence that that's the way this has been run for the last several years. It does return to the way it always was. So the record in 2011 was so bad for this business that we paid on the afternoon of September 29th and the morning of September 30th, we paid special attention to it. We took a surveillance team over there, and a group of people going in and buying cheap alcohol and moving into the residential area down by School of Mines, and all then being arrested for consuming alcohol in public. Someone who came out of the establishment had purchased alcohol, and he had a blood alcohol level of 0.15. While we were there, one of our undercover police officers witnessed a drug deal taking place in the parking lot right in front of the store. We made contact and confirmed that prescription drug oxycodone was being sold on the premises by people not related or working at the Fresh Start. 7:30 the next morning, same thing happened. A woman came in, purchased alcohol. Her blood alcohol at that point was 0.26. And it goes on and on. I was kind of taken back by Mr. Schwartz's comment that considering having his daughter go to School of Mines, but he doesn't know if he would like her to go there based on the type of people that are hanging out there. And it's so ironic because this is the type of people that he's knowingly brought to this neighborhood over the last few years. This neighborhood has seen a significant downgrade in the crime and disorder and basic quality of life because of starting with, and he's correct, starting with us working with Prairie Market and then Family Thrift, and then in our attempt to follow this problem out of the neighborhood, it landed here at the Fresh Start, and that's where it remains. And he mentioned that the extra patrol, the police patrolling there a lot seems to help, and I don't need to remind you, but I should remind the taxpayers that I'm aware of this, that it's not our job to provide bar security or to be there to make sure that a business is being run as it should be run. So what are the issues here? We almost didn't talk about the issues. He left before the thing was solved. But one of the main issues is the 40-ounce bottles of alcohol. And there are 24-ounce cheap bottles of alcohol too, but obviously the 40 is the one thereafter. The lack of concern and cooperation over the last several years is the issue. The neighborhood is the issue. The university, one of the leading universities in the country, one of Rapid City's hallmarks, is the issue. And I think the location is appropriate for a convenience store. It may even be appropriate for a convenience store that sells beer, but it is certainly not appropriate for the chosen clientele that has been brought into that neighborhood over the last 3 years. It's completely and wholly inappropriate. And I just wish we were up for a malt beverage license renewal today as well, because I think we could solve a couple of problems here, but that's basically all I have to say on the issue.
Thank you, Chief. Ron Sasso.
Just a question, I guess, for Tamara. Legally, what can the city do if we look at this as an understanding that alcoholism is not something that goes away, but with the 40-ounce bottles, the alcohol content, is there anything that the city can potentially do specifically to address that citywide?
I'd like to look at that a little closer. I think there's a possibility that we could outlaw those 40-ounce bottles citywide, that we could prohibit the sale, because we can, as a city, be more restrictive than the South Dakota code, which does allow for that sale, of course. So I'd like to research it a bit more, just to come up with an appropriate answer on that.
Thank you.
Jerry Wright.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Chief. I do believe that that 40 ounce is whatever it is a serious problem, and as I said earlier, the issues I think go beyond just this. I think it's alcoholism and a whole lot of stuff. And I just wanted to share that I know community leaders from the county and the city have, for years. It's just a little plug for something I think we need to do. Has worked for an alcohol drink tax that would help support the issues related to alcohol problems. And every time it gets to the state legislature, it gets stopped. I think it's an absolute despicable tragedy. And alcoholism, we know, is an illness. It doesn't make the risk to the students or the faculty or anybody at School of Mines any better. I think that we need to do more to correct it if we can. And I think that it's been discussed over the years, and this is somewhat of a commercial or an ask for action by our state legislature and others to enact legislation that will allow us to collect a tax that will help address these issues, which are very, very serious throughout our community, and in particular in this area. Thank you.
Thank you, Jerry. Bonnie Peterson.
Thank you. I guess if I'm understanding the chief correctly, them withdrawing this, they still can sell their 40-ounce malt liquor. Mm-hmm. Tamara, is there anything we can do when you have a bad record like this to put a stop to that midway in the process?
Well, I think that the applicant certainly has a right to respond, and of course you could notify him that you are intending to revoke the license or suspend it and set it for hearing to revoke that license.
Okay, can I make that motion, or since I asked a question first, to take steps
I'll make the motion.
Tamara, can you help us out procedurally? We need to vote on this first, and then we would have to direct that this would be on a future committee agenda.
I think we would just need to move forward and to set a hearing regarding the revocation of that license, and that would be the next step, is to set forth. We have to give a notice to him and give him an opportunity to respond to the chiefs and the comments. So,
okay. Well, I would certainly like to make that motion.
I'll second it.
Okay. And because this is too big of a problem with what we know, and we have a world-class school, and it's really an embarrassment to me that I've traveled around third world countries, and it's embarrassing to me to think that people that are coming from other countries see worse things than what I've seen in their countries, and so that's an embarrassment. Rapid City needs to do better than that. And so, anyway, I hope y'all will support that to let's put a stop to that and keep working on this issue if we can do more citywide. Thank you.
Tamara, before we proceed with accepting this motion, do we need to probably vote on the motion on the floor to acknowledge the applicant's withdrawal?
Yes, yes.
And a question regarding the withdrawal, what's the difference between a withdrawal and the denial? Does a withdrawal allow the applicant to move
To
that?
reapply. He could certainly apply for a new license. Now, this would not be a renewal. It would be a new license. He could in the future do that.
So then would it be better to deny the application outright rather than to allow a withdrawal? Is that or is it more of a policy?
I think he's given you his indication he wants to withdraw the application. He left, I think, understanding that withdrawal was occurring. And I don't know that you can deny the withdrawal. I can't answer that, but I don't think it would be fair to go ahead with this tonight with him not being here. I think he understood. I think he left with the understanding that you were withdrawing, that it was going to be acknowledged that it was going to be withdrawn. So if you want to continue the hearing to the next on this application, I think we could set it, we could continue it to the next council meeting. But I'm not sure you could proceed since he said he wanted to withdraw the application.
Because we're really talking about two issues. We're talking about the off-sale liquor license, and
Right, and he
we're also
also
talking
has an
about
off-sale malt beverage license, and that's the one that he's selling the 40-ounce malt beverages under. That's probably at this point, the more significant issue. I really think you would be better off acknowledging the withdrawal and then proceeding with a hearing on the revocation of a malt beverage license. I think that's the cleaner way to do it.
So let's proceed then with the vote on Dave Davis's motion to acknowledge the withdrawal, and then we'll allow Bonnie Peterson to have the floor to offer a motion to add to the next legal and finance agenda revocation process for the malt beverage license.
Right.
Okay.
Correct.
Would anybody like to speak to Alderman Davis's motion? Anybody else like to speak? There's 4 lights. Are they all? Please remove yourself from the queue unless you'd like to speak to the motion that's on the floor. Okay. We'll proceed then to the vote. All in favor of the motion to acknowledge the withdrawal, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Bonnie Peterson, you have the floor.
Okay, thank you. I would like to start the process or to schedule the hearing or whatever needs to be done to start working on removing his license from malt liquor sales.
I'll second that.
So we have a motion by Peterson and a second by Wright to add this to the next legal and finance agenda to start the revocation process.
I think you need it set for hearing, is what you're trying to do, is set for
hearing.
hearing a notice of revocation. Yeah.
And this for revocation, set for hearing for revocation of the malt beverage license.
Excuse me, what?
Any?
Oh,
Go ahead. You still have the floor.
I have to look up the notification requirements as to how long it is, so I can't give you a date at the moment as to when that date would be for the hearing. I was thinking it was 30 days notice, but I'm not sure, so I would have to double check on that.
And I'm just wondering if there's any other license about selling alcohol that he has that we need to be taking a look at. I don't,
Charlene only knows of those two licenses.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. So there can be an update of this at the next legal and finance
Yes.
agenda? Okay.
Yeah. And I may be able to give it to you before the end of the meeting, too. I'll look it up real quick. Okay.
Right. Bonnie, you still have the floor.
I don't think I have to say too much on this issue. It's we know that's a problem, and we do need, I agree with Alderman Wright, that this is a bigger issue than just this particular malt liquor, but it's wreaking havoc, and the students of School of Mines and all residents, and deserve a safe place to be. And if we want to become the city that we envision for ourselves and to host world-class students and world-class people, we need to make sure that Rapid City is a world-class place. Thank you.
Gary Brown.
Thank you, Mayor. I can support the idea of why we want to stop this, stop 40 ounce. I am concerned where this might lead. This is a legal thing. It's a business that's existing. I strongly appreciate his withdrawing it, and that I'm hopeful that the council won't let this drift and get into other business aspects and that. 40 ounce, I agree with the chief, must be some problems with that out there. But if we're going to start denying liquor licenses or malt beverage and that, I thought with our discussion this morning we have to give the reason. And in this particular case, we would say location. But just to do a blank denial for on that, that makes me nervous. I think we have to, as a council, decide if we're going to affect business and a business decision, we have to state the reason why, not just a blanket. So I just like to caution my council members to please think about that. Thank you.
Thank you, Gary, and we'll go to Jordan Mason. Jordan?
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Alderman Brown. I agree. If we're going to set down this road, I don't think that we can arbitrarily just say that it's one certain causation or one certain product that is causing this crime. However, I will say that from personal experience while I attended the School of Mines and from my direct observations, I would say that there is an issue associated with this store. And I guess I'd like to speak to the fact that while I was attending, half of that store was originally a laundromat. There were 0 incidents at that time. The current owner bought that half of the store and filled it full of liquor and booze, any way you look at it. When that happened, incidents started to occur on the School of Mines. Now, can I say that, does correlation prove causation? Absolutely not. However, can I observe that something happened? Yes. And I saw that this changed, and now we had crime. In addition, just by looking at the statistics, I thought it was kind of interesting that today at 11:21 a.m., there was a follow-up call to 520 Birch Avenue, very place that we're talking about. I've personally been in the store while I watched them get robbed of their booze. I've watched people run in there and run out stealing stuff. I've watched people have fights across the street of that gas station. I've personally witnessed these things. So for me, it is hard for me to sit here and say that there is no problem at all associated with this establishment. I'm not going to say that it's one product or another, and I agree that that's a bad reason. But I will say that by looking at just the reports in the past couple of months and just looking here, we've got, what is this, 3 disorders, couple violent reports, couple property damages, and proactive policing seem to be the highest at 520 Birch Avenue in the 500 block of Birch. To me, that, I guess the facts stand on themselves that, from 10/22/2011 to current to date, there were 2 liquor violations. To me, there's obviously a safety concern here, and that's just based on the evidence and the facts. So do I think that maybe we should look at what the cause is? I think that's at least worth our time. And I agree that, we have a valuable asset, and I've obviously got a little Celtic pride for my home school, but I do think it is a valuable asset that we need to protect. So I just wanted to share my personal observations, and I agree that I don't think that we can, arbitrarily dictate that it's one product or another, but I can say from my personal viewpoint that I have strong convictions that there is an issue at this location. I personally observed it, and as far as I'm concerned, there's obviously a safety concern coming from here. Thank you.
Bonnie Peterson.
I just wanted to clarify for my alderman that I'm certainly not after a witch hunt. I believe this location has showed themselves to not be suitable where they're located for the alcohol sales, malt liquor sales, and also that they have not held themselves to the kind of standard that I think should be, in that on 9/17, they sold to intoxicated person, and you would think right after that, you know, within those couple of weeks or a month or so, they'd really be tight on that. But then on 9/30, they were busted again for selling to intoxicated person. So that's why I'm wanting to look at their license. I'm not trying to go and look at everybody's license. So I just wanted to let you know that.
Gary Brown.
Thank you, Mayor. One question, just to clarify in my mind, we had a lady talk about a dorm problem, people walking, being accosted while they're walking to class. Does not the School of Mines have a security, campus security, or not? In my day, it's been a long time ago, but when our campus security on our college caught you doing anything, you didn't do it again. Tim?
Yeah. We have campus safety, and then we really rely heavily on the police department for a lot of the security stuff. So our people, although they'll escort you to a car if you ask, they aren't carrying a weapon. So we call it campus safety, but there is presence around campus in the evening.
What kind of staffing do you have in that?
Like how many? Very small at night. I think we have 2 at night walking to campus.
Might look at that. Thank you.
The motion on the floor is to proceed with a set for hearing for revocation of malt beverage license at 520 Birch with an update at the next Legal and Finance meeting, which is on November 30. Tamara?
I did find the statute, and the licensee has to be provided at least 30 days in advance of the hearing. You could set it in, and then it has to be published in the newspaper at least 1 week prior to each hearing. So I would guess that you need to, 45 would be.
Could we just update it at the Legal and Finance meeting next week?
If you'd like to talk about it then you could set it as to the time you're going to set for hearing.
Yes.
Yeah. And one other thing I just wanted to caution you on is that tonight we have not set that for hearing. So I really think the applicant needs an opportunity to respond to the allegations. So I think we need to kind of keep our it pertinent to the issue of the liquor license, just to be fair to the applicant.
Any further discussion on the motion on the floor? Seeing none, all in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. We're now on item 62. We have a motion to continue item 62 to December 5.
So moved.
Motion by Brown, second by Peterson, to continue item 62 until December 5. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. We are now on at the end of continued consent items, and we are on non-consent items, items 63 through 159. Do we have a motion to open public comment on? Motion by Roberts, second by Peterson. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. We'll go to item 65 first, and we'll go to John Haig. Mr. Haig. Item 65. And sir, if you could identify yourself for the record.
My name is John Haig, and I live at 725 Levin Avenue, 1 block south of the house that's in discussion right now. At this point, when I first moved into that neighborhood 3 years ago, crime was pretty prevalent. It was sort of a rundown, and over time, NeighborWorks came in, and they started talking to us. Since then, we have taken a house that was more or less condemned at 706, and that was torn down. We had volunteers bring in dirt to help fill that lot in. We had other companies come in and take the driveway out, which the city required. They did all of the work for us. We have had other companies that have donated money, not money, I'm sorry, but the gravel to take care of the parking lot, which the city wanted in the back half. We have had other volunteers from church groups come in and take and run a wooden fence down the south side of that property line between there and the 2-story White House. Now, what I'm getting at is 820 is sitting empty at this point. It's surplus property. What I would like to see is the original agreement between NeighborWorks and you folks to continue. Because at that point, what's going to happen is it's not going to be another rental property. It will actually be a homeowner, someone that will finally have their dream. Right now, we have 2 rental properties just in the 800 block. It's 807 and 821, both rental properties. If you drive by 807 from the street, you'll notice the front door on the right side and a big old piece of wood where the window used to be. That window's been broken out for over a year. But yet, they put the plywood in, and that's okay, because according to your laws, that property is now secure. But that's a rental property. Now, you go to 821, you look at the back of the house. There's another window broken out, a big old piece of plywood. Again, if you don't own the property, you don't take care of it. Now, if you go up Adams Street, just between Wilsey and Lemon, there was a rental property that the people had, and they terrorized the place. And they broke out the front porch. They had stuff all over the yards. Finally got with a landlord. He came in, he cleaned that up. And one of his comments was really interesting. He says, you know, in the past couple of years, I've noticed 11th Avenue starting to come alive. It's starting to clean up. And that made me feel good. So if you go on up to the 900 block, there's a piece of, there's houses all down the west side of the property right there. Those are all rentals. If you look at those and you look at the houses on the east side, which are owned, you can see a vast difference. But yet we have worked with John, who owns that property. He's starting to come around. He's starting to take care of it a little bit better. And what I would like to see, like I say, is this agreement that was originally started between 706 and 820 be carried through. It would be better to have a homeowner in there instead of another renter, and who knows, we might have more plywood windows. Any questions? Thank you.
And we'll go to Jay Davis for comment on item 66. Item 66.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. I'm just going to address a small part of the redistricting plan for the wards. Currently, I live in Ward 5, Precinct 5, and I guess that's the part I want to talk about. It's my understanding that this council has been attempting to make the ward lines in North Rapid more logical by spreading Ward 4 to the west to take in the area that has been kind of gerrymandered or left over in Ward 5 for the last decade. And I think that's a positive change. However, the natural boundary at the west end of North Rapid should really be the top of M Hill or Cowboy Hill, not Interstate 190 spur. Otherwise, you have what's actually a somewhat growing neighborhood on and near Silver Street, which is isolated from the rest of the Horace Mann neighborhood and placed in a precinct and in a ward with South Canyon and Pinedale and areas way past the cement plant. So I have 2 comments to try to fix the problem, understanding that it's pretty late in the process, but I've only been provided maps recently to look at this. One suggestion would be that you just simply take the Ward 4 western boundary to the top of the hill, which is truly the natural boundary, which would be the western end of North Rapid. And then to keep Ward 4 within the population limits, it's probably going to have to give up something either around La Crosse or around North Street to Ward 2. If that's absolutely, and that would have the virtue of having two wards, one of which is entirely North Rapid, another one which has a large section in North Rapid, rather than being divided among three wards the way it is now. If it's too late in the process, and if that's just not realistic, then I think the second best solution would be to make sure that the polling place for the Silver Street area is still at Horace Mann School, even if that means that that will be a polling place for two different adjacent precincts. Otherwise, you're expecting people in an old part of town to travel 2 or 3 miles just to exercise their franchise. I think it was a very positive step, Mr. Mayor, when you got a polling place north of the interstate, but this would be a negative step if this westernmost sliver of North Rapid, if the residents of that neighborhood have to travel a great distance to vote over on the west side. And that seems to be one of the major anomalies of the proposed map at this time.
Thank you. Seeing no further comments on items 63 through 159, do we have a motion to close public comment? Motion by Davis and a second by Roberts to close public comment on items 63 through 159. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. If there's no objection, we will take a 5-minute recess. We'll be back at 10 to 9.
That's a short cigarette.
Everyone's okay with that?
It's
okay.
Short cigarette.
We're in recess.
Come on, Gary, let's go have a smoke. I'll go with you.
Find a short one with a butt out there on the ground.
Okay, we're back in session. Item 63, Alderman Mason. You're very welcome.
Authorize the City Attorney's Office to research options for the animal noise ordinance and bring back recommendations to the December 14, 2011 Legal and Finance Committee meeting, and I move to approve.
Motion by Mason, second by Sasso. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Item 64, Alderman Mason.
Item 64 is to approve event permit for Young Artist Competition to be held on Saturday, January 28, 2012, for free parking. And I yield the floor.
Do we have a motion? Motion by Laurenti, second by Roberts to approve, and we'll go to Charity Doyle. Charity?
I'd like to suggest a friendly amendment to that motion to limit it from on 7th Street from Quincy to Kansas City and Kansas City from 7th to 6th.
Alderman Laurenti, would you like to make that accept that as a friendly amendment, or do you prefer a separate amendment? Okay, that's been accepted as a friendly amendment.
Thank you.
Any further discussion? Does everyone understand the amended motion? We'll go to Bonnie Peterson. Bonnie?
I wanted to ask the chief if he had had opportunity to, the police chief, if he had an opportunity to visit with the Young Artist Competition representatives about the parking.
Thank you. It's possible. Someone here from, okay, we have some representatives here.
Okay. I just wanted to see if this new plan would be acceptable to them.
My name is Tony Brumbaugh, and I'm with the Black Hill Symphony Orchestra. And what was the amendment to go from 7th to 6th and Columbus to St. Joe? Is that correct?
7th Street from Quincy to Kansas City Street and Kansas City from 7th to 6th Street. So you'd have that whole L-shaped corridor on adjacent to the corner where you'll be at. If my understanding is you're on the southeast corner of that intersection of 7th and Kansas City?
I believe that's where the church is, yeah. I think that would be acceptable.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. I'll be supporting this amended option.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Item 65, Jordan.
Thank you. Item 65 is to deny resolution number 2011-109 of intent to enter into real estate exchange agreement with Neighborhood Housing Services, the Black Hills Incorporated, DBA Neighborhood Works, Dakota Home Resources. And I move to approve the denial.
We have a motion by Mason and a second by Doyle to approve the denial. Any discussion? Steve Laurenti.
I just, Josh, Mr. Christensen, if you are able to answer a question, I'd love to be able to have your input. I guess my question really is just what your intention is and what direction Neighborhood Works is wanting to move with this property. And I don't know if things have changed since the last time we talked in Legal and Finance, so I wanted to just give you some time to maybe even address some of the maybe the questions that the rest of the council might have. So.
Okay. The intentions are still the same as far as we still would like to enter into the exchange. The staff had concerns as far as the property and the issues that the property, that it was in a floodplain, the issues that the property was in disrepair. We'd still like to move forward and use the project as a green project, and there is value in the property that is there, and there's a cost savings that we can pass down to the new homeowners that possibly come into that home once we refurbish the property. We've done the research and on a property down the street and received a LOMA, which is a letter of map amendment that raised the foundation up out of the floodplain, so that negated any kind of issues with the floodplain from what we understand. Our big goal to this project is to bring home ownership into this neighborhood. As John alluded to earlier, that rental properties are in disrepair throughout Lemon Avenue. And by us being able to enter into this exchange and put a new homeowner and build a new home, refurbish the home that is there, that'll allow us to continue with our efforts to revitalize the neighborhood. I know there were issues with the community garden, and the city may not want to take on the garden, but the nice thing is this is different from any other properties that you do have out there. This property is self-sustaining. The residents of Lemon Avenue have taken ownership of the garden and taken ownership of every portion of it. So there shouldn't be any issues as far as for your Parks and Rec department of any maintenance fees or anything else. So we are still urging the council to enter into this agreement, and we definitely understand the staff's recommendations if they want the property that, or the house or the structure that is there to be removed. More than comply with what is necessary, but we'd still urge you to enter into that so we can have control over home ownership or rental, because NeighborWorks may not have as deep a pockets as an investor that comes in and purchases the property and puts up a house. Unfortunately, Lemon Avenue is a lower income resident area, and you're going to have either a rental or home ownership, and we're hoping that we can help out and create more home ownership for this area and push out any kind of crime or so. Any other questions that I can answer?
Steve?
I don't have any other questions, thank you, but I just wanted to encourage my colleagues to think this one over. We have an opportunity to, I think, complete an agreement with Neighborhood Works, and there's an untold positive here with there being home ownership in that area. And coming from a financial standpoint and a background, and all of you, I'm sure it's very simple, this one, but the lowest cost that we can deliver this to Neighborhood Works, the easier it will be for them to deliver a smaller mortgage to a potential homeowner. So if we increase the costs and those issues with putting this together for them, that's obviously going to get passed on to any potential homeowner in this area. So I just want to encourage my colleagues to think about voting no on this denial and supporting a continued reduction of crime in that area. Home ownership obviously would be a big part of that, and I just want to encourage my colleagues to vote no on the denial. Thank you.
John Roberts.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And thank you, Steve. I also support this. John, can I ask you a few questions?
Yes, Mr. Roberts.
Thank you for showing up tonight. I appreciate it. You've lived on Lemon Avenue, you said, for 3 years, correct?
Correct.
And since Neighborhood Works started working down there with the gardens, you've seen quite a positive change?
Yes, I have. I have seen the neighborhood clean up. I have seen the neighbors actually come out and start talking to each other. That's the main idea of the garden. We hold a monthly meeting. We are getting more people slowly, but they're starting to come out and join us and giving feedback. So it's been a positive approach all the way along.
Thank you very much. I wanted that for my council members, the people sitting here on the dais, because I do know a lot of what's going on there, because as you know, I do have a plot in that garden, and I've been associated with the Lemon Street Gardens for a little over a year now, and I really enjoy it a lot. And I've seen a lot of positives in that neighborhood. One thing you didn't touch on too was, you know, the lighting that you've been doing in the neighborhood, putting motion detector lights on, helping do whatever you can in that neighborhood as NeighborWorks and as neighbors to help revitalize this neighborhood. And I think it's a positive step to have more home ownership on Lemon Street. And I think it's a good model for other parts of the city where, you know, there are a lot of low-income homes and there is a lot of crime. And I think you as neighbors have done a wonderful job. And I think NeighborWorks has done a great job there. And I guess in my mind, I don't really understand why this council has switched so much from last year. You know, August 16th, when this came through the second reading, from what I've found, I think it was a unanimous decision to turn this over to Neighborhood Works and to you know, take the gardens over. I think some of the council people have been worried about the cost associated with the city and the gardens as far as the Parks Department taking it over. And from firsthand knowledge, I know that's not going to be a problem, because I do know you and quite a few of the other neighbors down in that area. And I know that you're very dedicated to taking care of that piece of property, because I know that it's something that's been very important to you and has made a huge change in that neighborhood. So I just urge my council members, I'm done with you, John, I'm sorry, you don't have to stand
I just
up
had one
there.
more statement, if I could.
Okay.
The chief of police would know, because he has the records, the number of police calls that have been made in 2009, 2010, 2011. 2010 went up a little bit, but now it's dropping off, and that's what we're fighting for. We have one family that was creating 300 and some odd calls last year, and they're no longer there because you folks came together and helped us out with it. The lighting that we have there is normal street lighting, but we're allowed to put in a brighter light without touching any of the wiring, any of that. It's given it more of a night fixture so people can walk around. And for that, I'd like to thank you and for all your help.
Thank you very much, John. I was going to ask Steve, Chief Allender, what has been the percentage of crime as far as a drop on Lemon Street, just roughly? I know that you're, quite a few of your officers have been a big help on Lemon Street, too.
Well, I don't have the recent numbers, but we're very pleased with the reduction in calls for service and crime, and so it's coming along nicely. One of the important things that we look at there too is the quality of life and how the neighbors enjoy living there and the way they participate in the garden and other events, and that is way up. So I could have statistics at a later time if you're interested.
Thank you very much. I'm through me.
Dave Davis.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
This item has caused me a lot of consternation over the last few days because, quite frankly, I can see that the benefit to the neighborhood is immense. Much like I see the benefit from a lot of things that we subsidize. It seems kind of ironic because quite often I feel like I'm on the other side of this discussion. Tonight, we've got people that want the city to give away a piece of property, something that's of value. Now, we've got a city budget that's in serious trouble here. And we've got a piece of land that has some value. We don't know how much value because we haven't tried to auction it yet. As I shared with Josh this afternoon, if we had 10 police cars that were being surplused, we'd auction them off because they have some value to somebody of something. Now, there are things along the way that the city surpluses that don't have value because, quite frankly, who's going to use a 20-year-old fire truck? Sorry, Chief. Who's going to use it? Probably a small-town fire department, and we donate that away. So it's not that I'm adverse to where we're headed. I guess what I'm really looking at here is, more than anything, just to draw attention to what it is that we're doing. So that the next time that we talk about a subsidy versus an infrastructure, we remember this conversation. Because if we donate a $25,000 lot to a neighborhood that will help improve it and will help NeighborWorks put the right kind of family in there and get the family into the house rather than something that they find less appealing in a rental property, and that improves the quality of life, I'm all for that. I think this is very important. But let's not forget, if this is the direction that we go, that what we're actually doing is subsidizing NeighborWorks to the tune of the value of that land. Because that's, if we're going to donate a $25,000 piece of land, that's what we're doing. So the next subsidy that comes forward, remember this comment. Thank you.
Charity Doyle.
Thank you, Mayor. I would like to amend the motion, I believe would be the appropriate thing, to continue with the denial, but to explore ways where we could get the land in there in the hands of NeighborWorks. Other ways, without the trade.
Would the motion maker like to accept that as a friendly amendment?
I would.
Okay. Everyone understands the amendment? Charity, you still have the floor.
Thank you. And just to stress, I think we're all quite impressed with what NeighborWorks is doing and has done and hopefully will continue to do. Again, the city just doesn't seem to be interested in trading land. I just want to stress that I think there are other options. With this motion, should it pass, we can get together with staff and look at all the different ways that we can potentially make that happen, keeping in mind, getting the council to work together on it. So I hope that that's agreeable. Thank you.
Ron Sasso.
Thank you, Mayor. I think the amended motion has us moving in the right direction. I had the same concerns that Alderman Davis brought up, that as we look at this, on the one hand, we're seeing we've got a program doing wonderful things in a neighborhood, and that is incredibly positive. At the same time, the responsibility that we have to make sure, okay, did we get the most we can for that property? Is that the best route? I do think that it will, ideally it does end up in NeighborWorks' hands, but we have to explore the other routes and the value that we may be able to get for the city. The other thing that has been brought up here that I think is important, and probably, I know I'm veering a little bit, but this discussion that I had back in July with Chief Allender, that one of the concerns we have, rental properties in Rapid City, that there are many good landlords and there are some that are not good landlords, and that's something that I think we do need to explore, and it probably takes a lot of political will, but I'm just throwing that out for just thoughts. Anyway, thank you.
Bonnie Peterson.
Thank you. I have a question for Finance Officer. She'd be so kind as to answer. Or refresh my memory. Pauline, do we, NeighborWorks, are we giving them grant block or for the investment thing? I can't remember. It seems like there's so many kind of different groups.
If we've given them any money, it would have been through the Community Development Block Grant, and I honestly can't recall off the top of my head if they've received any funding in that means. So I
Okay.
apologize.
And I know that we funded someone, I think they were going to pay $30,000 for a piece of property, that one that had the 2 lots, that preschool or something. So it was about $30,000 a lot, wasn't it? Or I don't know if Alderman Davis remembers our discussion on that, or. Oh, about when we were doing the block grants, there was property, I think it was about $30,000 apiece when we had the discussion. It wasn't for NeighborWorks, but it was for, I think, for some preschool property or something. I guess my point in bringing this up or questioning it is that NeighborWorks is outstanding. We know that it can do a lot. So probably I'm thinking in my mind this is probably about a $30,000 investment, or at least around there. It could be a lot less, but when you look at the other cost of the cost of the crime reduction, I just think it can definitely be a win for the city to go along this route. Sometimes, it's always nice to say, well, we want that money in our pocket, but sometimes having the money out there working for the community is you get a lot more value back from it. So I guess my concern is as long as we're not going to do anything with this property until we hash it out with NeighborWorks and for it to come back, because I don't want it to go and be sold or just, be a maneuver to get this off the dais so that we can do what we want to do. So I think we still do need to explore options with NeighborWorks. And I appreciate the amended motion. Thank you.
Jordan Mason.
Thank you, Mayor. And if I could ask Mr. Christensen a question here. I'm looking over some of the record previous in 2010, and I'm looking at a legal and finance agenda, specifically, I believe it's January 13th of 2010. And I just wanted to make sure that I'm reading this correctly. But when you first approached the council, is it my understanding that this was your intention all along, specifically to put this into context and hopefully to jog your memory as I see that you were here at this time, but they are requesting the City of Rapid City to accept the deed for land at 706 Lemon Avenue for public use. In turn, you were requesting that the city deed the property at 820 Lemon Avenue. So has this been your intention all along?
It's been our intention, yes.
Okay.
To enter into an exchange.
Right. And is it my understanding that when we gave the Lemon Garden, was it then kind of the understanding of Neighborhood Works that this was the course of action that would just take place, or was the idea of exchanging?
NeighborWorks, the 706 Lemon Avenue?
Right.
No, we purchased the property.
Right. Okay.
We used what's called neighborhood stabilization funds to purchase foreclosed properties. This was a blighted, rundown house that we were able to tear down, and we heard from the residents what their concerns were, what we could do, and so we brought up the idea of a community garden, and so then we turned that property into a community garden and brought the residents together.
Right. Appreciate that. I just, I guess I wasn't really aware of some of the discussion that had taken place, and I've unfortunately just found it tonight, but I just want to be clear about how some of this discussion entered into. I guess my concern is, and I guess I'm kind of caught in a catch-22 here, because I feel like at one end I agree with Alderman Davis that frankly this, acquiring a property such as the community gardens, which I think are just absolutely fantastic for Lemon Avenue. I don't think there's any dispute there. But whether or not the city should require that is an entire discussion in and of itself. I think what your program is doing is great, but it's really the exchange that has, well, as the word has been used, some consternation. On the other hand, I guess I'm caught in a catch-22 with my fellow ward mate here that I agree that, you've done great things for the neighborhood. It's been a good program. But fundamentally, I just don't know if that's a risk that the city should be acquiring property like that. And if you'd like to speak.
If you don't mind me commenting on that. And in the beginning, when we first took the idea of the community garden, brought it to the residents, we approached the city and we asked them, would this be amiable to do for an exchange, and have the city take over the watering of the community garden while the residents took over the whole garden. And we spent countless hours working on and complying with what the city wanted the garden to look like. ADA requirements, the type of lot in the back, the parking lot, the size of the parking lot, taking out the front driveway. I mean, we complied with everything the city wanted. So coming down to this point and having this be an issue, as it is at this point, finds it it's hard for me at this stage of the game, because the residents, we've worked so hard as a neighborhood to make this happen with the intent of keeping going and making more impact in this other property. It's hard to swallow at this point that we've done everything that we've been asked to do by the city, and to come down to this point and have it possibly be rejected. So, thank you.
Appreciate that. I guess I'd like to ask one last question. Would there be any consideration of moving forward without the exchange?
As far as having the lot donated to us, sure.
All right, thank you.
John Roberts.
Mr. Christensen, can I ask you just a couple more questions? Can you give me a rough idea of how much money Neighborhood Works spent on the garden to get it to where the city was supposed to take it over in your last agreement with the council?
$65,000.
So you spent $65,000 for a $30,000 lot we were supposed to give you. Good job on your part, not a very good job on our part. August 16th was the second reading that the council of 2010, that the council, I believe, okayed this and set the stipulations for you to meet that you spent the $65,000 on, that you have met as of now, I believe, haven't you?
Correct.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Charity Doyle.
May I ask a question?
Yeah.
And you've been around the longest, Sam, so I'd actually direct it to you. Are you saying that we already have an agreement on the books to trade land? And if so, why has this information not been linked to this issue for the last 4 weeks? Sam, any idea, or who would I ask?
Tamara?
Allison, please enlighten us.
There was a resolution of intent that previously went through, obviously it was a different iteration of council, a complete changeover. And while the resolution was in place, an agreement was never hammered out after that resolution had been voted on. And I wasn't here at the time, and in working with staff on the existing structure and the state of the floodplain issues on that lot, I worked with staff and we brought forward the recommendation that at least in the property in its current state, it's recommended that the city does not proceed with an exchange and proceed with hammering out an agreement at this time. I can certainly see once that house is gone and once the land is reclaimed, and maybe this is a way to go about it, and Tamara, correct me if I'm wrong, but you could, in my opinion, table the acting on the resolution of intent as it is before this council today until that house has been auctioned off or demolished, whatever the more financially reasonable way to go about it would be, and the foundation demolished and the land reclaimed, and then revisiting a potential agreement for a land exchange after that has taken place.
Okay, so this resolution then is not binding. I just want to make sure that we as a city are not going against our word. It's not, so there's a difference between this resolution of intent and what you're calling an actual agreement, which has never been drafted.
Right. There's never been an agreement drafted and an
Okay.
agreement entered into. It was just a resolution saying we intend to follow through, with negotiating and signing an agreement, and
Okay.
an agreement was never entered into.
Okay, then the motion as it stands will be exploring ways to, in the city's best interest, get this land to NeighborWorks, as I understand it, while still denying the transfer.
The recommendation would be to deny a transfer an exchange at this time.
Okay. Okay, thank you for clearing that. Appreciate it.
Jerry Wright.
Reading the staff's report, this structure is in the floodplain, and your intent is to get it out of the floodplain by raising it, repouring the foundation and everything, so it would no longer be in the floodplain or under floodplain restrictions, correct? Correct. Okay. Thank you. I have no idea what that.
John Roberts.
I just want to commend you again, because I just want to reiterate that you spent $65,000, even though it was intent. They still spent a tremendous amount of money. They spent twice the amount of money we think this property is worth. So I don't know if that's so much of a subsidy or as somebody entering into an agreement and fulfilling their side of the agreement and us not. So anyway, I just hope I can get some support from the council on this.
Ron Sasso.
This is, looking at this now, I've got to say it's starting to change in how it appears. If we had an agreement, at least a working agreement in place, it's almost a little bit like the St. Joe Investment Group and the switch that took place there. I have to say that if we're trying to operate in good faith, I have a lot harder time with saying, okay, let's back off. I think if we're looking at having a transfer written, perhaps that is outlined of what legally must happen to that property, so that as a city we are safe, we know that will not end up as in the floodplain, and that those issues would be addressed. you know, and I drove past the property that was mentioned that NeighborWorks had redone as far as the house that was there, which was very nice. And I think, again, this is kind of getting to what is right now versus what is best. And I think even if we follow the other route, we're still going to get to the same place. It's just going to take us longer to get there.
Jordan Mason.
Thank you, Mayor. Just to reiterate, but the motion on the floor is to explore options on how we can get the property to them, correct? Just to clarify. I first want to just say that I appreciate my fellow councilman, Alderman Roberts, for showing me the light. And I obviously did not do my full due diligence on this, but after looking over the report and the council meeting minutes here, it does seem to be the case that we obviously did enter in and passed a second resolution of intent to do this. And that was the direction. In addition, obviously looking at the original appraisal that you brought forward in, I believe this was August 2nd of 2010, I'm looking at the floodplain, and it does seem to be that there is a partial involvement with that property of the floodplain, but it is not fully in the floodplain, as per your also attachment of the FEMA attachment there. I guess I'm feeling a little more comfortable in moving in this direction, and obviously, you know, I feel pretty strongly about doing what we say we're going to do and keeping our word as a unified body. Right, wrong, or indifferent, we obviously did tell these people and these gentlemen that this is the direction we were going to take, and you know, I frankly feel then that's what we should do. Thank you.
Dave Davis.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have a couple of questions. Josh, first of all, if you don't mind, this afternoon in one of our conversations, I made a commitment to you, and I'm going to reiterate that commitment, that if you could bring to me something that showed that there was a previous agreement, that I would be your biggest supporter. And earlier tonight, you told me you couldn't. So has that changed since we talked earlier tonight? Because it's sounding all of a sudden on the dais that there was an agreement that I can't find that the city made to you. Because if this council as a body agreed to move this thing forward, I don't think we have anything to debate. We need to live with what we agreed to do in a previous time. So if you've got that agreement, please help me with that, because it sounds like we've decided up here that there was one. Do you believe that you had an agreement back in August of 2010?
I do believe we had an agreement because we followed everything that the city required. And I couldn't produce anything with the limited time that I had this afternoon after our conversation, but it sounds like John has found that information.
Thank you. The second question I've got is of our city attorney. Tamara, do you believe that we're sitting in the same place for obviously the same reasons that I'm asking the question? The direction that we gave them in 2010, in August of 2010, do you believe was a preliminary, or were we moving in the direction that they should have gone forward and spent the money with the understanding that we were going to do what they're asking us to do tonight?
I'm going to defer to Allison so she can help.
There's no agreement that I've been made aware of or that I've seen that let NeighborWorks know that in exchange for the improvements that they made to the community garden, that a land exchange would happen with 820 Lemon. I'm aware of the resolution of intent that previously came down the pike, but I am not aware of any stipulations that were attached to that in regard to those community garden improvements. It may be, and again, I wasn't here at the time and I haven't seen the documentation that might have gone through Planning Commission or some other body as far as the requirements for zoning and planning for that garden and that plot. And that's something I can definitely look into with Brett and Community Planning and Development. But I am not aware of any agreement that said if you make these improvements at the community garden, the city will exchange 820 and 706 Lemon.
Allison, with your investigation of this and from a legal standpoint, what do you believe was the intent of that resolution?
When I last reviewed that resolution of intent, it was actually procedurally deficient. One of the statutes that it listed that it was proceeding under was actually not a statute that this type of exchange could proceed under. And I viewed it just as that, a resolution of intent to explore an agreement and enter into something binding. And, negotiations fall through all the time, unfortunately. And as I stand here today, as I recommended a few moments ago, I think it is certainly within the purview of this body to table whether or not to deny or approve the actual exchange. The land has been surplused. It was surplused on consent tonight. I would suggest getting that house sold, getting the that structure sold, getting the basement demolished, reclaiming the land, and at that point in time, pursuing the possibility of an exchange. As I sit here today, I will tell you, in the research that I did several months ago, I think there may be a problem with donating that lot to NeighborWorks outright. The reason being that it would be for a single-family dwelling. The NeighborWorks would not be using it for a public purpose. So I don't think, and I can't give you the citation to the statute, but I would be able to do that if this is explored further. But I don't think a donation is a possibility. I think if we are going to get this to NeighborWorks, that we would need to, the city would need to explore an exchange, not a donation.
Thank you. I'll yield.
We'll go to Jerry Wright.
Thank you, Mayor. Just for clarification, a resolution was passed, correct? And if I remember my readings from just coming on the council, a resolution is almost as binding as an ordinance, correct? And also a resolution is a form of, I believe, a verbal contract, is it not?
It was a resolution to discuss.
It was a resolution to discuss?
Of intent.
Resolution of intent, that's different. So is that not, could that not be construed somewhat as a verbal contract, which is binding?
Tamara?
Could I just suggest a couple of things? I think that the motion that's on the floor that gives us an opportunity to look at alternatives and bring it back to the council would be highly useful, because I don't think we can put together everything that's happened tonight, and maybe we can bring you some alternative that would be better suited to as a way of handling this property. I believe there are a number of issues because of the fact that it's in the floodplain, the fact that it would have, even if NeighborWorks were to be somehow donated or exchanged with them, it does have some additional problems because of it requiring flood insurance, which makes it an added cost for anybody who would be a low-income resident. And so because there's a number of issues, because of Allison's bringing up the issue of the resolution of intent and some procedural issues regarding that, I really think that we would like to have an opportunity to bring this back to you, some information, maybe at the next legal finance agenda, and then just bring it back to the council rather than trying to solve this all tonight. I don't think we're going to get there, frankly.
Thank you, Mayor. I guess with those comments from our city attorney, I guess I would agree that we probably should take a little extra time. In addition, I'd be happy to send on the information that I've dug up in the short amount of time and looking at this to show the resolution and everything else dating back to January of 2010 last year to show our intentions, if that would be helpful to the rest of this council. Thank you.
Gary Brown.
Call the question.
Are there any objections to calling the question? Are there any objections to calling the question? Seeing none, the question's been called. We will proceed immediately to a vote. The motion on the floor is to deny the resolution of intent and proceed with discussion of options. Okay. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Item 66, Jordan Mason.
Thank you, Mayor. Item 66 is Redistricting Committee, proposed redistricting map, and I will yield the floor.
Okay. Before we take speaker lights on this, I'd recommend that we get a motion on the floor to proceed with drafting the ordinance for first reading. We can certainly change it prior to second reading, but that's
That would be my motion.
Second.
Motion by Davis, second by Peterson. And before we take speaker lights, if Pauline, if you'd like to take a few minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have my lovely assistants over here help me out with this. This is the committee's proposed map. The redistricting committee has actually met twice on this issue. The first time we kind of laid out the ground rules of what we wanted to do, what we wanted to see accomplished. And then at the second meeting, I have to say that Alderman Peterson met with Don Jarvin and with GIS and brought forward a map that would work within some of the guidelines to make sure that the districts had approximately the same number of population within those boundaries. This is the map before you. I believe the red lines were the old ward lines, and then the colored lines are the new ones. We tried very hard to stay within the current boundaries. Obviously, we could not do that 100% because of the growth that we have seen in some of those areas, so we did have to do a little bit of shifting. And our goal was to keep within 5% plus or minus of the ideal number of population, and with this map, we were also able to do that. That being said, I do understand that there are some concerns with the wards 3 and 5 boundaries. I know Alderwoman Peterson and Alderman Davis have met with Don Jarvin, and again, there's a couple of other proposed maps that they have been looking at, and with that, I guess if you have questions regarding those, I would defer those to Mr. Davis. I can put his latest map up on the screen as well, but to meet the goal to have everything, the first reading, the second reading, and the publication of the ordinance approved and in the paper by January 1, we do have to start with the first reading at the next council meeting. So I would ask that you support that motion on the floor.
And we'll go to Richie Nordstrom.
Thank you, Mayor. My question will be for Pauline when she gets prepared there. I'm going to support the motion, but just a couple of quick questions for Pauline. Have you had a chance to take some input, an opportunity to listen to the input from our citizen Jay Davis for his encompassing the Silver Street area? Have you had an opportunity to review that?
No, I have not. Tonight was the first that I have heard of that concern with specifically how to address that. I do know if there's a polling place issue, we can request through the auditor's office that they retain their current polling place. And I know Julie's been very good to work with in those regards.
I can't say enough for what Julie has to say about the input on these redistricting maps as well. Don, have you had a chance to address some of the concerns, issues? I'll just leave it open for a general question at this moment. If you have other input on this, I'd be willing to listen.
Don?
We did look at the Silver Street area. Alderman Peterson and I looked at that, of moving that into the North Rapid area. The problem is with the number of people there, what the net effect is that it shifts Ward 5 down south of Jackson Boulevard and shifts Ward 3 over into South Rapid into what is now Ward 1. The reality is we have on the, if you use the hogback as the line to divide the city, we had 23,000 people on the west side and 45,000 on the east side. There just aren't enough people on the west side to form two wards. So we have to basically pull across that geographic boundary in some way. When we looked at it, and the gentleman did come and talk to me and Bonnie, and we looked at it, and without shifting the entire structure of a lot of the wards, that just basically was impossible. Ward 4 right now is with moving the piece of North Rapid back into North Rapid where it needs to be. There just are too many people in Ward 4.
Mr. Ritter, if I understand the motion correctly, this will still be going back to committee for review, but it'll be starting the motion. I'll yield the floor. Thank you.
It would be back on the next Legal and Finance meeting, correct, for first reading?
That would be correct.
Bonnie Peterson.
Thank you. I just wanted to address issues of Ward 4 and the redistricting. We, thanks to Don, he's worked really hard on this. We have played with all sorts of different scenarios, and I know there's people even north of Silver Street that want to go over into Ward 4. And the problem that we're facing is that Ward 4 is so dense and rich in people that it really puts it really makes, like, for Ward 5 to go over into Ward 2, it just, probably the next time we do this, I'm thinking that we might have to, like, totally change everything because Ward 4 is so rich in people, and that's what the lines are drawn for, is for the number of people. And but I just want Ward 4 to know that we have tried very hard to do what's right by them, just as we have for everybody else. And we're pretty confident that given the guidelines that we have and the requirements of evening out the wards, that this is a pretty good product. So thank you, Don, for all your work. And I would tell the police chief and fire chief not to give up their day job because
Ron Sasso.
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, this is, I've got to say that the changes, appreciate all the hard work that has gone into this. And something that should not be lost is that at the state level, there weren't as many changes that are happening here at the city level. And there's still, ideally, if we could figure out a way to get that section of North Rapid in there, that would be great. But I think we're all looking at it, and it's difficult. It is very difficult. And also the other thing we have to consider is where is the population growth going to be over the next 10 years too, when we look at that, and how different will those populations be when we look at redrawing that again in the future. I definitely support where we're going. I know there's a new revision that Bonnie emailed out to council just prior to this meeting with some minor changes to that, but it doesn't touch that word, that section of North Rapid. But I think it does address some other concerns that Alderman Davis, pointed out with one of the sections that was being affected. So I think this is going to be a work in progress, and hopefully we will get it done by January 1st. Thank you.
Gary Brown. Any objections to calling the question?
Yes.
We do have an objection. Do we have a motion, or we have a motion to call the question? We need a second.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to call the question. We are voting only on whether or not to call the question and end debate. An aye vote is to end debate, a no vote is to continue debate. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? No. Roll call, please.
Davis. Peterson. Roberts.
Aye.
Brown. Wright. Lorente.
Aye.
Nordstrom. Mason. Doyle.
Aye.
Doyle? An aye vote is to end debate, and a no vote is to continue debate. Okay.
Basso.
The motion to call the question has failed?
Failed.
Okay. Dave Davis.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm really not that adverse to calling the question, but I think that Pauline has been waiting to show us this map, and to call the question without allowing her to show us all the hard work that she and Don put in was worth all the demonstration that we just went through. So would you mind showing us the new map?
This is the new map that was presented today that Don and Bonnie and Dave had been working on. This has not gone back to the committee, but it is something that we would like to show the committee. First blush, it appears that it would work. Again, the numbers are within our guidelines, and it addresses some of the concerns that Mr. Davis and his constituents had. So,
basically, the concerns, just so everybody understands, that we all recognize that we have a problem in the Silver Street area. The proposal was going to create the same kind of problem in the Mountain View area. And on a map, it looked fine until you interjected the hogback in there. And suddenly you were dividing that Mountain View area off to the west, but including it in Ward 5. This brings it back in, and it just extends Ward 5 a little further to the south, brings the balance into the numbers that Don has shown you there that are in compliance, and seems to make 3 and 5, although they look goofy, it's really the mountain in the middle that is causing that. So it seems to address what people have brought to my attention, and I hope that the committee gives it some consideration. Thank you.
Jerry Wright.
I know the term gerrymandering is used, but the question I have to ask is, where are we on the issue of an incumbent when you redistrict? Have we heard from the Secretary of State or the Attorney General on what happens?
Pauline.
thank you, Mr. Mayor. I've actually received some contradicting, in my opinion, message through the Secretary of State, and I had asked for clarification. I was not able to receive that yet today. The question is if we draw the lines in such a way that a current council member no longer resides in that ward with the new district lines, what happens to that council person? Do they lose their seat immediately? Do they go to vote at the next election, or do they serve out their term in office? So some would go through 2012, some would go through 2013. In the response that I received, initially he indicated that the council people would serve out their term. But in the following paragraph, he said that they would could run for election in the new ward at the next election. So I had asked for clarification as to when they would actually run for that. I would be remiss if I did not tell you that our city attorney's office has also looked at this, and they have some concerns as far as if their opinion would match that. So I guess I would defer that to our interim city attorney.
Wade did some fairly extensive research today, and it is entirely unclear what happens here. We have the Secretary of State saying that the person can stay in their office initially, and then we look at the statutes, and we don't see that being provided for. The statutes are terribly unclear because they talk about what happens to county commissioners and to school board members, but there's no provision for city council members being able to retain that seat until the next election. We have talked with a person who is a redistricting expert at Gunderson Palmer. They tell us don't do this. So that's what I can tell you right now. There is no clear answer. We also understand the Municipal League is looking at us to see what we're going to be doing. To give you a clear answer, I cannot. I can just tell you the different information we've received.
Jerry, you still have the floor.
I just wanted that discussion out there, that's all. Thank you.
Ron Sasso.
And I believe right now with this current map, it does not impact anyone under that, those laws as far as affecting any of the alder persons.
If I might, my understanding with the wards drawn here and also with the first proposal by the committee, that all city council people would remain in their current wards. I do want to also point out that I circled the areas that have changed from the original map that was in front of you versus this one that needs to go back to the committee. Those are the areas that have some changes in them.
Bonnie Peterson.
I hope, I don't know who makes sure that this goes to the state, to ask the state to clarify these rules or to make the rules so that this does not happen the next time we redraw. And I certainly hope that that will be addressed because there could have been probably about 4 or 5 people drawn out of these lines if we wanted to really be more dramatic with what we did. And that would just cause pure confusion for the city to have that many people turn over in elections. And it's just ridiculous when the county and state don't have to. So.
And I have no understanding as to why there hasn't been a legislative fix. It perplexes me completely.
Okay, so what do we need to do to try to get that? A legislative fix?
It would be something we would approach the Municipal League regarding, and I think they're quite aware of it as well.
Yeah, because it's just a real potential source for chaos in the future, and I hate to see that because I believe next time we're going to have to be much more dramatic with the lines, and that would be very disruptive to government and to our people we serve.
Pauline.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have requested via email to Yvonne Taylor with the South Dakota Municipal League that the Municipal League Board will discuss this issue actually at its December meeting to look at possible legislation to bring forward in the next legislative session. So I have put that request in.
Jerry Wright. Any further discussion? The motion is to proceed with first reading. This will be on the next week's Legal and Finance agenda, November 30. Seeing no discussion, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Item 67, Jordan Mason.
Thank you, Mayor. Item 67 is to approve the employee severance plan for department heads only, and I will yield the floor.
Dave Davis.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just for clarification, I believe, unless it needs to be a substitute motion, the motion is to approve the severance plan for department heads only, but to clarify that we would continue the severance for the following current employees that were hired with this benefit. And the following individuals were hired by the city with the current employee severance plan as a provision of their compensation package. There are 15, Terry Wolterstorff, Public Works Director, Dale Tech, City Engineer, Steve Allender, Chief of Police, Mike Moldover, and Fire Chief, Pauline Sumption, Finance Officer, Mary Floto, Assistant Finance Officer, Joel Landine, Assistant City Attorney, Wade Nyberg, Assistant City Attorney, Allison Marsland, Assistant City Attorney, Jeff Barbier, Community Resource Director, Brett Limbaugh, Director of Community Planning and Development, Jerry Cole, Parks and Rec Director, Greta Chapman, Library Director, Cameron Humphreys, Airport Executive Director, and Brian Maliski, Civic Center General Manager. The point with the clarification is that from this point forward, it will only be for the department heads. Also, after a significant amount of research by our city attorney staff, thank you very much, Tamara and crew, there's, I think, more clarity into the points of the library, the airport, and the civic center, that they're already included by the way that we've set up ordinance and the fact that they're being compensated as city employees. So this just clarifies so that there's not a question mark who would be covered at this point, but there's also a suggestion certainly that on the part of the airport and the civic center that those boards take it upon themselves to ratify that so that there's no question mark that those directors are covered by it. Hopefully that didn't confuse it more than it cleared it up.
Do we have a second? We have a motion by Davis and a second by Doyle. And we'll go to Jerry Wright.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm just going to say a couple comments on this. I am absolutely amazed that we have had political appointments in pay grades below department heads. I think that's unconscionable. I think that has created a political appointment environment which is less than professional, which creates a chaotic employment scenery within the city. And I know it's been going on for a long time. It isn't brand new, and I think it's totally wrong. And I think it needs to be done away with. If this doesn't do it, we need to do it later. I also think that I would love to see us go into a almost non-political appointment within our department heads, and I'd rather see them hired on a competitive basis on their merits of their performance and history and so forth, and retained accordingly, and if there's a disciplinary action, they'll go accordingly. I think that would give us a much more of a stable environment and more consistent employment of our department heads, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And that's all I'm going to say. Thank you.
Ron Sasso.
Thank you.
I agree with Alderman Wright on that, on those points, that looking at how we can move these positions so that they are not politicized. And there again, this is a long-term problem. The other thing, though, I'm not a fan of the size of the severance package. On the one hand, I know I would love to see it be done away with, have those positions no longer politicized, and that would be in an ideal world. But I know with what we have on the floor right now as a motion, we're looking at moving forward. The one thing I would like to put forward as an amendment to that motion would be the maximum, to change the maximum payout to reduce that from a 6-month amount to 3-month severance, and just looking at some of the salaries that we've had in some of these positions. If somebody has been there for over 10 years, the last payout was exceeding $60,000. Just looking how can we reduce that amount, and I know I would like to see reduced to 3 months maximum.
Do we have a second to Ron Sasso's amendment?
Second.
Okay, we have an amendment to the motion on the floor. This will be a separate vote on the amendment. We have a motion by Sasso to amend and a second by Roberts, and this to take the maximum from 6 months to 3 months. Is that what you said?
Yes.
Okay.
For new or grandfathered or what?
For new?
Clarify where you are.
My hunch is I will have to say for new, because I don't think I would have the support to go there
So it's for new.
otherwise. It would be for new.
Okay.
Thank you.
Anything else? You still have the floor.
I would also, well, let's leave it at that right now. Thank
Richie
you.
Nordstrom. Richie? We are talking only about the amendment to take it from 6 months to 3 months for new positions.
Thank you, Mayor. I can't support that motion, primarily because it essentially is current form, if I understand everything correctly, and please, staff, correct me on this, because essentially what it involves is the short-term disability plan. If you are going to start tinkering with the short-term disability plan, that is going to affect a lot of other people as well, not just the department heads. Because if it just changes for the department heads, then we're setting up two different classes of employees, and I can't support that. Their severance package right now is based on that severance package plan. And right now with the severance package set up the way it is, that it goes through a number of years or number of hours based on what the employees are entitled to. If someone could guarantee me that if a employee is dismissed because of not of anything that they did, it's just simply a political appointee that's dismissed for political reasons, please guarantee that that person is going to have the opportunity to get another job, very similar, comparable pay, comparable benefits, within a 6-month time frame. If somebody can guarantee me that, I might consider this, but at this point, I can't go along with that reduction in the severance package plan. In essence, what it does is sets up our department heads as a different class of employees. And just to reiterate, what you're doing is tinkering with that severance package plan, and I can't go there. Thank you. I'll yield the floor.
I just wanted to speak in support of the amendment on the floor. It's not where I'd like to have it, and I know the taxpayers would love to see it gone. I mean, we've had I'm just ballparking, but granted, I've heard before that we haven't had much spent in this severance package plan, but I'm looking at over $170,000 of the taxpayers' money in severance has been spent. So I'm on the side with the taxpayer. I'd like to see this scrapped completely. But this is a step in the right direction for us to get HARA down to 3 months, and I'll be supporting the amendment. Thank you.
Dave Davis.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Actually, I can agree with Alderman Laurenti in that if we absolutely understood that it was $170,000 that we have spent since 2000 on 4 individuals on a severance package, and we looked at it that it was wasted in that respect alone, I would certainly support it. Where I struggled with this thing from the very beginning is that although we pay out when someone leaves, and they leave without cause, let's keep this in mind. If someone is fired because of cause, this severance package is not supposed to be triggered. You can debate whether it has or not in the past, but it's not supposed to be. So if someone is relieved without cause, the other side of the coin is what advantage do we pick up as a city on the front side of these hires? Who are we able to attract as the quality of a department head that without this severance package, we may not be able to hire? As I surveyed the department heads almost to the person, they said it was a factor in their decision to come to work here. Not that they intended to be relieved without cause, but the fact that if it happened, it helped offset a little bit of the fact that we don't pay as well in a lot of these specialized areas as what they might make in the private sector. So if we're able to hire one person since 2000 that was the right person, something tells me that would offset $170,000 pretty quick. And that's where I've really been torn on this thing is this in fact a cost of attracting the best people that are out there? Obviously, if we were paying out very regularly, I would have a completely different attitude, but 4 times since 2000, 4 times in a decade, I'm not seeing it abused, and so I'm really struggling with shortening the term if that might keep us from hiring the absolute best people to run this city. Thank you.
Charity Doyle.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And thinking about the infrequency with which we have paid these out, as well as where it is right now, and it's 6 months for 10 years of service to the city, correct? I think it needs to be steep. I think since we are in agreement that we're going to keep the severance plan, the less painful it is to pay it out, the more likely it may happen, you know, with the change of a mayor or anything like that looking down the road. So I think the steeper it is, the more it's going to keep any incoming mayor in check, not to have to answer to the taxpayers about why they're cutting a check for 60 grand or whatever it ends up being. So something to consider.
Jordan Mason.
Thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to kind of reflect on a couple of things because there's been some new information that I received today that I think is important to bring up. But when this was first brought up to the council, there was a attachment brought up specifically in referencing our comparison to other cities. And it was stated at that time that there was no severance plan from Sioux Falls. We were compared to Arvada, Mitchell, Brookings, Aberdeen, and Laramie, and Minot. As of today, apparently Sturgis also has a severance plan. And after doing a little research on the side, there's other cities around the state that do have this. So I did want to kind of clarify the record because that was something that was a little shocking and new for me to learn. And I think that may help to bring some context into this discussion. The other thing that I just kind of wanted to recap on in this discussion is to remind everyone just very briefly, and I just want to be brief here, but where we started out with this discussion and where we are. Now, in August of 31st of this year, it was brought up and there was a memorandum of intention to remove the employee severance program altogether. And that's where the comparison to other cities was. On September 6th, there was a motion, and it was continued on to Legal and Finance. By September 28th, we had a memorandum that included new positions to the severance plan, and it was over the issue of whether or not they should have been included or not. I just want to bring this into light, but the last motion was to approve all appointed positions, and now we're going back to department heads. And I just want to kind of recap on this discussion because we have gone from one direction, one extreme to the other in a matter of a few months. And this discussion, frankly, has been extremely difficult for even myself to keep track of because we first just started discussing completely eliminating it, then adding new positions, and now we're talking about just going back to department directors, and now we're talking about reducing time. There's been 6 different versions of this, and I just kind of want to remind everyone the context of how this discussion started and where we are today. Thank you.
Reggie Nordstrom.
Thank you, Mayor. As you can tell, this is one of the issues I get very passionate about because I feel this is one of the other things that are happening to city employees if we keep chipping away at what we are doing to our best and brightest of the city. These folks, and as Alderman Davis pointed out, these folks have taken the investment in the city. They spent, and several of them have spent a long time getting to the point where they're at right now. In a lot of cases, they spent. In a lot of cases, they spent at least 10 years getting to this point of being a department head. This great investment that they have done for the city and for us, being on the city council, needs to be taken into consideration. The investment that these employees are doing with us and taking that leap of faith with the city, going from a supervisory position or an assistant to a department director, is one of the major factors that they were doing for that consideration of taking that promotion. So if we keep chipping away at the best and brightest we have within the city, I'm almost certain that we will not be able to maintain the best and brightest if we continue chipping away. There's some individuals that come up to my mind as to the reasons why they took on the positions they've stated. But for the bottom line for them was that it became a major investment for them. We've heard discussions about how much this is going to cost the city. That's only, I'd just like to remind the council that it's only because they are terminated without cause. If they just get on the wrong side of a mayor for some reason or are not reappointed to the position by a mayor and eliminated or discharged because of that, they should be compensated because of no fault of their own. And I'd like just to remind everyone, it has been since 1988 when this program was started. That for me makes a long time of investment for our city employees and not that great of an investment from the taxpayers. Yes, it sounds like a lot of money, but $180,000 over 12 years, you start dividing that all out, it really isn't that much as far as an investment from the employees' point of view. But if they are terminated without cause, we're losing a great talent. We're losing a great talent. And I just don't want to see our employees chipped away at it anymore. Thank you, Mayor. I'll yield the floor.
Thank you. Please keep your discussion to the amendment, which is to go from 6 months to 3 months for new positions or new hires. Jerry Wright.
I'll try to make it bearing. I hear the argument that the severance package is the reason someone would take a job with the city of Rapid City, and I don't believe that's true. I think that, because I was in that boat when I was a division manager, they were having a tough time getting a public works director. I applied, didn't get the job. That's okay. But I did it for the right reason. I did it because I wanted the job. And I think that if we had an environment here that was honorable and honest and non-political, I'm talking about our entire generation or era for a long time, where the applicants for our department heads had the opportunity to apply for a job, compete for a job, and get the job because they were the best qualified, and they knew if they got the job they'd stay unless they wanted to leave, unless they did something wrong. There is no need for a severance package. And we will get the best, and they will perform. They would be somewhat protected for wrongful discharge or harassment or anything like that, but I think we're setting the wrong tone with a severance package and a political appointment environment for us to be where we need to be. That's just my opinion, and I will quit at that. Thank you.
Ron Sasso.
Some of the thoughts that I've had, first of all, if I was going for a job and was told, well, and if we let you go for no reason, we'll give you some money. that's not going to do it for me. I think it could be a factor, but I also think that if it's 3 months or 6 months, okay, there's a severance package there. There's a safety net. There's a cushion. When you look at our budget moving forward and you look at where we're at and trying to be fiscally responsible, trimming that makes sense. It doesn't radically alter what we do. It doesn't devalue our employees. And actually, the last person who was terminated, I don't think there was, or without cause, I don't think there was a lot of politicizing because of the payout. So I think that argument doesn't hold enough water, in my opinion. But I do think that when we have a discussion about $30,000 worth of land and the value of that, and we look at where our money is going, potentially to somebody who is no longer with us, no longer working for the city, and yes, they may have been let go for political reasons, which I agree is wrong. But at the same time, at that point, we are getting nothing in return. Reducing this from 6 months to 3 months maximum makes sense.
Bonnie Peterson.
I have a question for the attorney. Tamara, Alderman Nordstrom pointed out a while ago that this employee severance plan is tied to the short-term disability. However, if we would limit it to 3 months, I mean, we're not telling other people, we're not changing the disability plan. I mean, the disability plan stays the same. And I don't know if that was what Alderman Nordstrom was indicating, that would change. So it would just be laid out for the 3 months for this employee severance plan.
Yeah, I think there needs to be some clearer definition of what you'd want to do, because you were saying the maximum would be 3 months. And currently, the severance plan is tied to the short-term, in terms of calculating it to short-term disability plan, and that's used as the formula. It does, if you reduced it, it wouldn't change the short-term disability plan. The language would just need to be clarified a bit to be able to implement it appropriately.
Okay, well, that's what I thought, that they were kind of two different things. Anyway, I will be supporting this motion to reduce it to 3 months. For future employees, I think we need to be moving more toward a fiscally responsible situation. And so anyway, I'll be supporting it. Thank you.
Charity Doyle.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think it'd be helpful to have a slightly different perspective. I remember sitting in I think it was either an agenda review or department head meeting, and I believe I flat out asked the question, for the people sitting around that table, would not having a severance package have impacted your decision to take on your position? And I heard some stories at that time. I'm wondering if Chief Allender would be so good as to share his story.
Steve Allender.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. Well, when Chief Teason retired was in the middle of 2007, and I had to make the decision whether or not to put in for the job, with 2-year mayor terms starting at about the same time. I think that the mayor term that time would start about a month or so before the police chief appointment would take place. So also significant was the South Dakota retirement calculation for my eligible retirement date was about 3 years or 2 3/4 years down the road. So the scenario ran through my mind. If the current mayor at that time was going to appoint me chief and then only serve a 2-year term, and if there were to be a mayor come in who didn't like me or the way the department was going and would change me out, send me down the road. I spent basically my adult life here working, and so I would work up to the point until I didn't meet the whim of that current mayor, and I would be out a few months prior to reaching, or a year or whatever it was, prior to reaching the retirement rule. So now I go back into the workforce, and the dismissal looks mysterious because there's not many details. The mayor wouldn't say, I'm letting you go for no reason whatsoever, through no fault of your own. I don't think mayors would do that. It would be a little more secretive in appearance at that point. So I'd be out in the job market, just released, and be facing some damage to my reputation just for that. So those are the thoughts that went through my head. That 6-month severance package made me believe that if I were to have to undergo that political de-appointment, that would give me and my family enough income and enough time to search for a job, work out a move out of the city or the state, and without having to, deplete savings or go on food stamps or whatever. So it gave me just enough confidence to take that risk. The other thing, since this argument began, I think it's very interesting. There's a lot involved being a department head. So you're running the department. You're the new subject matter expert on that department, and you have to keep the mayor, and every 2 years perhaps a new mayor and council in check. There's a lot of energy with new appointments, and people want to do things, and you have to be the person that tells the mayor sometimes, no, that can't be done. And so if it becomes so easy then for the mayor, if the mayor just wants yes, and I'm talking positions, not personalities here, not individuals, but if the mayor demands to have more yeses from a department head, then he just dismisses the department head who has too many no's and brings in a yes man. And so I think that's very dangerous for city government, to have too many yes men. So secondly, and maybe finally, I think in all due respect, I think we're just overthinking this a little bit. This severance plan, which has been referred to as a golden parachute, that's not really an accurate description of a 6-month deal. It's more like a paper parachute. But that is probably, in my view, enough of a check and balance for the mayor who may become dismissal happy, because there's a direct consequence then to dismiss a department head without cause. It can be done if there's a difference in philosophies, if there's a personality rub, if there's some disloyalty, things of that nature. That dismissal then would require just a little bit more thought and deliberation to make sure it's not a whim, but really has something to do with bettering the city and the future of the city. So those are just my thoughts on it. Thanks for letting me ramble.
Thank you for indulging. I appreciate it.
Tamara Peer.
Again, I wanted to clarify that it is tied to the current severance plan is tied to the short-term disability plan. It's based on years of service. So if you were going to do a maximum of 3 months, then you would have to also determine what you would do as a minimum, or you need to restructure that. Because now it's divided up in from 90 to 3 years, 3 to 4, 5 to 6, 7 to 8, 9 to 10, and more than 10. And then it has the number of hours. So I think you might want to restructure that a bit if you go that way.
John Roberts.
I do support Ron on lowering this to 3 months. Steve, that paper parachute of yours, at $100,000 a year, that's $50,000. That's 2 years' salary for a lot of people in Rapid City. So I think it is a little more than a paper parachute. And I think that especially a lot of people in Ward 4, I like to say Ward 4, because a lot of people there It might be 3 years' salary for a lot of people, you know? It's a lot of money. Whether we think it's a lot of money or we don't, it's a lot of money. So, thank you very much.
Gary Brown.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm not going to support the motion that's on the floor. I have talked to just about all the department heads. I've talked to some past department heads, and it is a factor in getting hired. Being in business and that, I want the best I can get. I want an advantage in getting the best I can get. And if this will help make the difference in getting somebody to look and come on here and work in Rapid City, I'm going to take that advantage. Also, it's going to take, for somebody to get a max and get some of these big figures you're talking about, they're going to have to work for about 10 years here or better. And if they are doing a heck of a good job, they're going to stay on longer than 10 years. We're going to get the money back out of them. So I'm not going to support the motion to shorten it to 3. I'd like to have the advantage of the 6. I think it is important. For those of you who say that it isn't, I would disagree. Thank you, Mayor.
Richie Nordstrom.
Thank you, Mayor. When I start hearing comparisons about the salaries that are out there in the community with what our best and brightest are making, I don't think that's a fair comparison. If our police chief is making $100,000 a year, I think he well deserves it, because we've had studies in the past that prove that says that he deserves that. If there's anybody out there in the community that feels they deserve $100,000 a year, then it's up to them to bring that forward, and I applaud their efforts if they can do that. But I would like to caution the people that are comparing our community members with our police chief. If they're doing the same work, the same talent that we have as our police chief, and if they are not making $100,000 a year, then I support their case. But we are not comparing the same thing either, as if we were comparing the police chief or the fire chief with someone out there in the community that's making less than $40,000 a year, which is about the average or median income. I get a little passionate about that area when we're starting to compare our community members with our police chief or our city employees and our best and brightest. I think that's a slippery slope that we're entering on. And if we start chipping away at those benefits that the employees get, I just feel very passionate about the area that we should not be going there. And especially when we start comparing the citizens with our employees, and especially the citizens with our best and brightest. I don't think that's a fair analogy with our best and brightest. In speaking to the other department heads, and I don't really want to bring the other department heads, bringing them to the podium too.
If you could keep it to the motion, please.
I'm sorry, Mayor. I'm sorry. I just get a little passionate about this whole issue. And I don't want to bring the rest of the department heads to the podium, but I've heard similar stories as what the chief shared with us tonight. And I just don't want to tolerate our employees getting chipped away at. Thank you.
Ron Sasso.
Just for clarification, Tamara, would it be acceptable as the current plan would indicate that the hours they have, it's separated as 40-hour weeks, 56-hour weeks, that if it capped at, because currently at 7, when it goes from 6 years to 7 years, it would cap off at 480 hours for the 40-hour week, and I believe it would be 716 hours for the 56-hour week, which would be, I believe, in line with that.
I'm going to defer to Jeff. He's he has more knowledge of.
Jeff?
Thank you, Mayor. For the purpose of this discussion, the 56-hour week employees are not included. They are not included as far as severance, so you can ignore that column. All the department heads are technically 40-hour week employees. Now, obviously, a lot of us work considerably more than 40 hours, but the 56-hour employees, those are in the fire department, and that is a special case. What Tamara's referring to, just to clarify, we had some discussion about this earlier, you're talking about a two-tiered system here, where with the severance plan, you get so many hours at 100% of your pay and then so many hours at 60% of your pay. So that's what Tamara's referring to, is when we try to just make a straight 3-year maximum, that whole sliding scale would have to be adjusted, unless you want to make it simple and everybody that gets let go gets 3 months. But we would need clarification because we have to rewrite the non-union employee guide, and it's fairly complicated how the system works right now. So to just cap it at 3 months, we wouldn't have enough direction to know how to rewrite it.
Okay, I guess I'm trying to look at we're looking just from the severance standpoint.
Correct.
We're not looking at affecting the disability. So the idea of saying that at when the person does reach the level of that 40 hours per week as stated in its current form, that it would, I would think it should be reasonable that it would.
We can certainly come up with a formula.
Okay.
But if you look at if you look at the people that haven't reached 10 years yet, if you're going to have a 3-month maximum, what are we going to pay prior to that in terms of what hours at 100%, what hours at 60%? We would have to slide the entire scale.
I guess I was looking at just trying to be simple with it and not radically alter the plan and just put it so that it caps at that 3 months, which would be at 5-6 years, because I figured that might be the easier way to do it than trying to alter it the other way. We can do it either.
We can certainly come up with a formula that would do that, but it would take a little bit of work. And we'd probably have to bring it back for your approval again, because we'd have to slide the other years as well.
So I would assume it would be easier just saying we keep the severance package as it is up until it reaches 3 months. That's what I was looking at doing, just to put that cap in there. Again, this is only for new hires. Just to clarify, this would not affect Chief Allender or anyone else. This would be for new hires moving forward.
Okay, so just to clarify, Jeff, if the amendment passes, you would need to do the recalculations and bring that back to the council.
Thank you, Mayor. I believe if I understand Alderman Sasso, he's saying that we wouldn't wait to the 10-year point. If at whatever point someone reaches what is a equivalent to 3 months of their salary, so if that's 5 years or 6 years or 7 years or wherever they hit that, that would be where the scale would stop.
Yes.
That's pretty simple.
We can do that.
Okay. All right. Gary Brown? Any objections to calling the question? Seeing no objections, we're going to proceed directly to the vote on the item, and that are on the amendment, and that is to reduce the maximum payout from 6 months to 3 months. We're voting on the amendment only. All in favor of the amendment, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? No. Roll call, please.
Peterson. Roberts. Brown. Wright. Lorente. Nordstrom. Mason. Doyle. Sasso. Davis. It's a tie vote.
Chair votes aye.
Thank you.
Okay. We are to the amended. We have the amended motion on the floor. The question has been called. Everyone understands the amended motion. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? No. Roll call, please.
Roberts.
Amended motion. Yeah, the amended motion, an aye vote on this will pass will keep the severance plan with the list that Dave read in, grandfathering them in, and it will going forward, it will be for department heads only, and the max will be 3 months. So an aye vote is to approve that, and a no is to disapprove. Roll call, please.
Roberts. Brown. Wright. Lorente. Nordstrom. Mason. Doyle. Sasso. Davis. Peterson. It's another tie vote.
Chair votes aye.
Thank you, sir.
Item 68, Jordan.
'68 is to authorize the mayor and finance officer to sign lease agreement between the City of Rapid City and Rapid City Arts Council Incorporated, and I move to approve.
We have a motion by Mason and a second by Wright. Any discussion? The two lights, are those for the previous item? I have Richie and Gary. No? Okay. We have no lights. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Item 69, Gary Brown.
Thank you, Mayor. 69 is approved change order number 1 after Hills Material Company for the 2011 Out of Dust project. Project number ST11-1968, CIP number 50297 for a decrease of $812.44. I will yield the floor because I have to abstain.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Motion by Wright, second by Roberts to approve. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed, motion carries with one abstention from Gary Brown. Item 70, Jerry Wright, would you read this in the agenda?
Project number 5, project number ST11-1914, CIP number 50844 for an increase of $24,029.45, and I move for approval.
Motion by Wright, second by Roberts for approval. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries with one abstention from Gary Brown. Item 71, Gary Brown.
Thank you, Mayor. Number 71 is discussion of council liaison for the Public Works Divisions and the Parks and Recreation Department. And I move to continue this back to Public Works so we can have more discussion at the committee level.
Motion by Brown, second by Peterson to continue back to Public Works. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
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 Opposed, motion carries. Bid 72. Pauline?
First items for the high nitrate content hay bales. We only received one bid on this, so the recommendation is to reject all bids and authorize staff to re-advertise.
So move.
Motion by Nordstrom, second by Doyle. Any discussion?
Yes.
Jerry Wright?
Pauline, we did I can't remember, it was Fair Market Value Committee meeting on this, and I can't remember I think we were at $70 a ton or something like that. What does this equate to? I don't have anything on this other than what that total bid was. How close to the allowable price were we?
I would have to defer that to Public Works Director Walterstorff.
I don't have the exact dollar figures in front of me, but I believe it should have been around $30,000 total, so it's substantially lower.
Jerry?
I'm just not, are we sure we're going to sell it, even if we advertise, because of the nitrates?
I think our thought is we would kind of rebundle the package and at least try to sell the good product we have. If we're left with the high nitrate, we'll figure out what to do with that at a later time.
Okay.
Richie Nordstrom?
Thank you, Mayor. Jerry, just to put you a little bit more of a comfort level, the nitrates are not as serious. Yes, when they get to a certain level, yes, they're bad, but just to calm your fears a little bit about the nitrites are worse, and we are not experiencing any problems with that. It's so if there, anyway, if we can sell it at a little better value than what we have it at, don't put that much alarm into it. Yes, it's a concern, but not that high of alarm for nitrates. Thank you.
My only concern was the price. Thank you.
Okay. Motion on the floor is to reject bids and go back out for bid. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, motion carries.
Next item is for the 2011 fire hydrant installation annual project. We received 6 bids on this. Recommendation is to award the base bid plus alternate 1 in the amount of $40,725.46 to Warwick's Excavating, Inc.
Do we have a motion? Motion by Brown, second by Roberts to approve. Any discussion? Jerry? No? All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, motion carries. Items 74 through 159 are all alcohol license renewals. Do we have a motion to approve 74 through 159? Motion by Roberts, second by Brown to approve items 74 through 159 per the recommendations on the agenda. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, motion carries. Under mayor's items, I didn't add this to the agenda earlier, and I probably should have. I don't need a vote on this, but I would just like to take a moment to announce there will be a press release coming out this week on this, but there are several committees that are important committees that need to be have reappointments coming up, and I just want to briefly read those into the record so anybody watching can apply on the city's website, the citizen action form or citizen interest form to serve on these committees. The first is Beautification Committee, which meets the third Wednesday of each month at 7 a.m. Again, beautification the third Wednesday of each month at 7 a.m. Mayor's Committee for Employment of People with Disabilities. This meets the third Wednesday at 3:30. The third Wednesday at 3:30. Mechanical Board, they meet as needed. The Journey Museum Board, they meet the fourth Thursday of each month at 4:30. Again, the Journey Museum Board meets the fourth Thursday at 4:30. Parks and Rec Board, the second Thursday at 5:30. And then the last one is Residential Contractors Board, the second Thursday at 7:30 a.m. So those, there'll be a press release coming out again on that, but please encourage your constituents to apply, and anybody watching is welcome to apply, and they can simply go to the city's website to do so. Anything under council items and liaison reports? If not, we'll go to items 160 through 164. Do we have a motion to open the public hearing? Motion by Brown, second by Laurenti. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, motion carries. The public hearing is now open. We do not have any speaker request forms. And so we'll go to items 160 to 162. Do we have a motion to continue those items until December 5 per the agenda? Motion by Wright, second by Nordstrom to continue items 160 to 162. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, motion carries. Item 163. And Gary Brown, could you read this in the agenda for us? We need, first of all, I'm sorry, we need a motion to close public comments on.
Second.
Motion by Davis, second by Peterson to close public comment on 160 to 164. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, motion carries. Item 163, Gary.
Thank you, Mayor. Acknowledge applicant's withdrawal request by Renner Associates LLC for Bob Akers for a variance to the subdivision regulations to waive the requirements to install pavement, curb, gutter, sidewalk, street light conduit, water, and sewer along First Street, and to waive the requirements to install additional pavement, street light conduit, sewer, and water along East Boulevard as per Chapter 16.16 of the Rapid City Municipal Code, located north of the intersection of East Boulevard and Kellogg Place. And I move to acknowledge.
Motion by Brown, second by Roberts to acknowledge the withdrawal. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Bill list 165. Pauline.
We do have some additions to the bill list, and instead of me reading them all to you, I will put them before you. The total bill list for tonight with those additions is $8,810,330.72.
Do we have a motion? Motion by Roberts, second by Peterson to approve the bill list. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed, motion carries. Item 166, this is the Rupert appeal. Tamara Peer.
Yes, we were just asking you to grant us authority to proceed with an appeal under the Conrad Rupert versus City of Rapid City case. This would be our outside counsel who would be proceeding with this.
Motion by Peterson and second by Laurenti. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, motion carries. No executive session tonight. Do we have a motion to adjourn? So moved. Motion by Roberts, second by Sasso to adjourn. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, motion carries. We're adjourned. Happy Thanksgiving, everyone.
Same to you.